No prisoners, not tonight. Kill the wounded one first, I want the others to watch him die. The enemy commander gave that order with a smile, looking down at 6 trapped American soldiers on Christmas Eve, and he meant every word. He'd already burned their eye in the ski. He'd already cut them off from rescue. He knew no helicopter could reach them in this storm, and he did not care that it was Christmas, or that one of them was only 24, or that their blood would freeze into the snow before morning. What he didn't know was that someone was already listening in the dark, and she never missed. Before we go any further into this story, I want to ask you something simple. If you believe that no soldier should ever be left behind, take 1 second right now and subscribe to this channel, and stay with me all the way to the end, because the ending will stay with you. And in the comments below, tell me the city you're watching from tonight, so I can see just how far this story travels. Now let's begin. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cole had led men through deserts, jungles, and cities that no longer had names on the map. He had buried friends. He had carried them. He had learned the hard way that the loudest danger was never the one that killed you. It was the quiet that came first. And right now, high in that frozen mountain corridor, the quiet was too deep. "Talk to me, Reyes," Cole said into his throat mic. His voice was low, even the voice of a man who had trained himself never to let fear leak into the radio. "You seeing what I'm seeing?" "I'm seeing a whole lot of nothing," Commander Reyes answered. He was their youngest, 24, still new enough to think that nothing was good news. "Corridor's dead, no heat signatures, no movement. Snow's coming down harder, though. Visibility's dropping fast." "That's not nothing," Cole said. "That's somebody being patient." Behind him, crouched against a wall of gray rock, the other 4 members of his team waited without a word. There was Master Chief Danny Boyd, 41 years old, and the oldest man on the team, a man who had been doing this so long that Cole sometimes felt like the student. There was Tomas Reyes on the UAV controller. There was Kessler, quiet and enormous, carrying more gear than any 2 men should. There was Priya Nair, their medic, who could stitch a man back together with cold fingers and no light. And there was Wilson, the radio, the lifeline, the voice that connected them to a world 2,000 miles away that had no idea they were up here. They had been sent to watch, that was all. Watch a corridor, count vehicles, report movement, and go home. Nobody had said anything about a fight. Nobody ever did. Commander D. Wilson said, and something in his tone made Cole turn. "I'm getting weird chatter. Encrypted. Lot of it. It's local, it's close, and it's picking up." "How close?" "Closer than it should be." Cole felt it, then that old cold thing in his stomach that had kept him alive for 15 years. Not the cold of the mountain. The other cold. "Reyes, put the bird up. I want eyes on those ridges, now." "Copy." Bringing her up. The small drone lifted off the snow, with a thin electric whine rose above the rocks and climbed into the falling white. On his screen, Reyes watched the world tilt and spread out beneath the camera. The corridor, the frozen river below the ridgelines, rising on both sides like the walls of a trap that had already been built. And then he saw them. "Contact!" Reyes breathed. Contact, Commander. I've got movement on the East Ridge. Multiple. 6-8, no more than that. Oh my God, they're everywhere." "Numbers, Reyes. Give me numbers." "I can't count them fast enough. 30, 40, they're coming down both sides. Commander, we are in the middle of them." For one heartbeat, nobody moved. Cole looked at the ridgelines with his own eyes and saw only snow. That was the worst part. The enemy had chosen this ground because a man could not see them coming until they were close enough to touch. 40 fighters, maybe more, sliding down through the white in perfect silence, and his 6-man team sitting in the open like coins on a table. "Get the bird higher," Cole ordered. "I want their heavy weapons. I want to know what we're walking into." Pushing her up. Pushing her. The drone screen went black. Not static. Black. Gone. "Reyes, I lost her." Reyes's hands moved fast over the controller, then stopped. "Commander, I didn't lose her. Somebody shot her down. They knew exactly where she was. They've got jammers, they've got shooters, they killed our eyes on purpose." And there it was. The quiet was over. "Everybody down," Cole said, and the words had barely left his mouth when the first mortar round screamed out of the sky and turned the snow 40 feet to their left into a wall of black smoke and flying rock. The sound hit them like a fist. Kessler was thrown sideways. Nair grabbed Reyes by the vest and dragged him behind cover. Cole was already moving, already counting, already doing the terrible math that every combat leader hates to do. How many of us? How much ammunition? How far to anything that could save us? Report, he shouted over the ringing. Everybody sound off. Boyd up. Kessler up. Nair up. Reyes up barely. Wilson. A pause that lasted a lifetime. Wilson's up, Commander, but the long-range set took shrapnel. I've still got line-of-sight comms, but our reach back is gone. I can't call home. I can't reach anybody past this valley. Cole closed his eyes for 1 second. That was all he allowed himself. They were cut off. No drone, no long-range radio. No one in the entire world knew they were about to die. Then we do this the old way, Cole said. Boyd, you've got the west. Kessler east. Nair, keep Reyes moving and keep your kit ready because we're going to need you. Wilson, you keep trying that radio if it costs you your fingers. Somebody somewhere is listening. We just have to reach them. And you, Commander? Boyd asked. I'm going to keep us alive long enough for that to matter. The second mortar landed closer. They ran. Not away there was no away, but toward the only cover left, a shallow fold in the frozen ground where the river had cut the earth long ago. It was barely deep enough to hide a man lying flat, but it was all they had. They threw themselves into it as rifle fire began to snap and crack overhead, chewing into the rock, kicking up snow in little white explosions. They're not rushing, Boyd said, pressed shoulder to shoulder with Cole. 20 years of war had made his voice almost bored, which was how Cole knew he was afraid. You feel that they're not rushing us. They're squeezing. I feel it. That means somebody smart is running them. Somebody who's done this before. I know. That means they're not going to make a mistake. I know, Danny. Boyd was quiet for a moment, then softer. That kid Reyes, he's 24. I know how old he is. I'm just saying, Christmas Eve. Boyd fired 3 rounds toward a shadow on the ridge, then dropped back down. My daughter turns 9 tomorrow. She thinks I'm at a training base in Germany. You're going to see her turn 10, Cole said. That's an order. Boyd laughed one short, broken sound. Copy that, Commander. 50 yards away, up in the storms, enemy commander watched through thermal optics and felt nothing at all. His men had done this before in other mountains in other wars. He had told his fighters exactly what would happen. The Americans would try to reach the sky, and the sky would not answer. They would try to reach their command, and their command would not hear. They would fight because Americans always fought, and it would not matter. The weather had grounded every helicopter for 100 miles. The storm was on his side. The night was on his side. And time was on his side because it was Christmas Eve, and half the men who could have helped these soldiers were home with their families. Tighten the ring, he told his squad leaders. Push them into the low ground, and I want the mortars walking closer every 90 seconds. Let them feel it coming. Let them understand there is no escape. Fear kills faster than bullets. Down in the fold of frozen earth, the fear was doing exactly what he wanted. Commander? It was Nye, and her voice had changed. Medics had a special voice for bad news, a voice that stayed calm to keep everyone else calm, and that was the voice she was using now. It's Kessler. He's hit. Cole crawled to them. Kessler, the biggest man on the team, the one who carried everyone else's weight, was on his back in the snow, with both of Nair's hands pressed into his side. The snow beneath him had gone dark. How bad? Bad. Nair didn't look up. It went in above the vest. I've got pressure on it, but I need to pack it, and I can't do that here, not with rounds coming in. If I lose control of this bleed, I lose him. 20 minutes. Maybe less. Kessler grabbed Cole's arm. His grip was still strong, which was the cruel thing about men like Kessler. They stayed strong right up until the moment they didn't. Commander, he said through his teeth, don't you carry me and get somebody else killed doing it. You hear me? I mean that. Nobody's getting left, Kessler. That's not what I asked. And that's not your call, Cole said. It's mine. Now shut up and let Nair work. He crawled back to the lip of the fold and looked out at the storm, and for the first time in 15 years, Ryan Cole did not know what to do. He had a plan for everything. That was the job. But there was no plan for 6 people, one of them bleeding out, surrounded by 40 trained fighters with no radio, no drone, no aircraft, and no daylight for another 12 hours. There was no move. There was only holding on, and holding on was not a plan. Holding on was just dying slowly. Wilson, he said, talk to me about that radio. I've been rerouting through the damaged set, Commander. Wilson's hands were bleeding from the broken housing. He had not stopped. I can't reach base. Mountains and jamming, I'm blocked. But I might be able to punch out a short-range distress on the guard frequencies. Anybody within maybe 30 miles who happens to be listening might hear it. Who's within 30 miles? Wilson looked up at him. Nobody, Commander. There's nobody out here. That's why they sent us. Cole put his hand on the young man's shoulder. Send it anyway. Copy that. And so Wilson began to speak into the dark. Any station, any station. This is Overwatch Element in the Northern Quarter. We are troops in contact. We are surrounded. We have a wounded man. We are cut off from command. If anyone can hear this, we need immediate assistance. I say again, any station, any station. He said it once, he said it twice, he said it 10 times. The only answer was the hiss of the storm and the crack of enemy fire and the slow, terrible 90-second rhythm of the mortars walking closer. They're at 200 meters and closing, Boyd called out. West side's moving up. Commander, they're getting ready to rush. When they think we're weak enough, they'll come all at once. Then we make them think we're strong. Cole moved down the line. Listen to me, all of you, we ration fire. Nobody shoots unless they have a target. We make every round count because when we're out, and there's no resupply coming down that mountain. We hold this ground, we protect Kessler, and we do not give these people the fight they want. We give them the fight we want. Understood. Understood, Commander, came the ragged chorus. Say it like you mean it. Understood, Commander. Better. But Cole knew even as he said it that they were counting bullets now, and there were more enemies on that ridge than bullets in their pouches. He knew that Nair's 20 minutes were already down to 15. He knew that the man running the enemy squads was smart and patient and had done this before. And he knew that the mortars walking closer every 90 seconds would reach them soon, no matter how well they held. Wilson, he said, again quieter now, just for the two of them. Keep sending, don't stop, even if there's nobody. Especially if there's nobody. Why especially, Commander? Cole didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, because a man ought to be reaching out to somebody when it ends, even into the dark. Now send. Wilson swallowed hard and turned back to his broken radio. Any station, this is Overwatch Element. The mortar rhythm stopped. Every man in that frozen fold noticed it at the same time. The steady 90-second beat that had been walking toward them for 20 minutes simply ceased. And in combat, a silence is never a gift. A silence is a decision. That's the rush, Boyd said. They stopped the mortars because their own people are about to move up. They don't want to hit their own men. Commander, they're coming. Now, all of them. Everybody up, Cole ordered. Pick your sectors. Nair, get Kessler behind you and get your rifle in your hands. Reyes, you're with me on the center. This is the one. This is the fight we hold right here. They rose to meet it, 6 people against 40 in a storm on Christmas Eve, with a wounded man behind them and no help coming. And for one strange moment, as he brought his rifle up and settled his breathing, Ryan Cole felt something almost like peace. Not because he thought they would win, he didn't, but because these 5 people beside him had trusted him with their lives, and he was going to spend his own making sure their last stand meant something. Then the enemy came out of the snow. They came in a wave, dark shapes appearing at 40 meters, 30 weapons already firing, screaming to freeze the blood. Cole's team fired back with cold discipline, dropping the first rank, but there were always more behind them. Always more, and the return fire was so heavy that Cole could feel the rock chipping against his cheek. Reyes was firing beside him, controlled bursts exactly as he'd been trained, and Cole thought the kid's going to die well, at least. The kid's going to die like a professional, and then he hated himself for thinking it. Boyd, how are we holding? We're holding, Commander, but I'm on my last 2 mags, Kessler's ammo. Somebody grab Kessler's ammo. On it, Nair shouted, ripping the pouches off her wounded friend and sliding them down the line. Reyes, watch the left. They're trying to swing wide. I see them. Nair, how's Kessler? Still with us, barely. A grenade landed at the snow 10 feet away. Cole saw it, shouted, threw himself over Reyes, and the world went white and loud, and the pressure slammed the air from his lungs. When his hearing crawled back, he was lying on top of the younger man, and Reyes was staring up at him with wide eyes. "You okay?" Cole shouted. Commander, you okay, Reyes? I'm okay, I'm okay. Then get back on your rifle." They fought. God help them, they fought. But Cole could feel it slipping the way you feel a rope slipping through your hands, one strand at a time. Boyd was down to his last magazine. Kessler was slipping toward the dark. Nair was firing with one hand and holding pressure on a wound with the other. And still the enemy came, and still the storm swallowed their distress calls, and still the night was on the enemy side. Commander Boyd shouted, and there was something final in his voice now, something Cole had heard from dying men before. "It's been an honor. I need you to know that. Whatever happens in the next 5 minutes, it's been the honor of my life to serve with you. Don't you do that, Danny. Don't you say goodbye to me. We're not done. We're out of bullets and we're out of time, Ryan." Boyd used his first name, which he had done maybe 3 times in 10 years. "There's no shame in it. We did the job. Now let's do the last part of it right." Cole looked down the line at his people. At Reyes 24, at Nair still working, at Kessler fading, at Wilson still whispering into a broken radio to a dark that would not answer, at Boyd ready to die well. And he opened his mouth to say something he never knew afterward what he had been about to say when the radio in Wilson's bleeding hands crackled, and a voice came through, a voice that was not the storm, a voice that was calm and clear and female and utterly without fear. "Overwatch element," the voice said. "Adjust to 7.3 megahertz. I've got you." Everything stopped inside Cole's chest. "Wilson," he said slowly, "tell me I just heard that." Wilson was already turning the dial with shaking bloody fingers. 7.3, 7.3. "Say again," Cole said into the mic. "Say again, whoever you are, we did not copy your last." The voice came back, and this time it was crystal clear, close and steady, and impossibly calm, as if the woman on the other end were sitting in a warm room somewhere and not out in the deadliest storm on earth. "I said I've got you, Overwatch. I've been listening to you fight for 20 minutes. You've done well, but you're about to be overrun on your west flank, and your man on that side is out of ammunition. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep your heads down for the next 10 seconds, and I'm going to change the math." "Who is this?" Cole demanded. "Identify yourself. Are you air? Are you ground? Where are you?" "I'm the reason you're going to limp," the voice said. "That's all you need to know right now. Heads down, Overwatch. On my count, 3. "Everybody down," Cole roared, not knowing why he trusted her, only knowing that he did that something in that calm voice had reached past 15 years of hard-won caution and simply taken hold of him. "Down, down, everybody down, 2. Boyd looked at Cole. "Commander, what is 1? On the west ridge 100 meters up in the falling snow, the enemy fighter leading the flanking rush, the one about to sweep down and finish Boyd's exhausted position, dropped without a sound. His men didn't even hear the shot. It came from somewhere impossibly far away, from an angle that made no sense through a storm that should have made any shot impossible. One moment their leader was alive and pointing them toward the kill. The next he was face down in the snow, and a strange terror moved through the men behind him because they had all understood the same thing at once. Someone was out there in the dark, and that someone could see them when they could not see anything at all. A second shot cracked across the valley. Another enemy fighter fell. A third, a fourth. Down in the fold, Cole's team watched in stunned silence as the wave that had been about to break over them suddenly faltered, the dark shapes turning, looking up at the ridges, no longer advancing but flinching, ducking, hunting for a shooter they could not find. "She's commander. She's dropping them," Reyes whispered. "One at a time. She's dropping them from that's got to be 1,000 meters. That's got to be more than that. That's impossible. Nobody can shoot like that in this." "Somebody can," Boyd said, and for the first time in 20 minutes, the old warrior smiled. "Somebody just did." The voice returned, still calm, still, even as though eliminating men across a mile of storm cost her nothing at all. "West flank's clearing, Overwatch. You're a big man on that side, he can just breathe now. I need you to reload, reposition, and be ready because they're going to figure out where I am eventually, and when they do, they're going, I now change tactics. When that happens, I'll need you to move exactly where I tell you, when I tell you." Can you do that for me? Overwatch element? Cole keyed his mic. His hand he noticed was steady again. This is Overwatch Actual. My name is Cole. And yes, ma'am, we can do that, but I need to know who I'm trusting with my team's lives. There was a pause, just a short one, and when the voice came back, something moved underneath the calm for the first time, something old and tired and human. You already trusted me, the voice said. That was the important part. Another pause. You can call me Mercer. Mercer, Cole repeated. Are you alone out there? I'm always alone out here, Cole. Are you one of ours? The pause this time was longer. Out on the ridge, another enemy fighter fell, and another the rifle in the dark, never seeming to rest, never seeming to miss. I used to be, Mercer said finally, and then quieter almost to herself in a voice that Cole would remember for the rest of his life. Officially, I don't exist anymore. Officially, I died a long time ago. A breath. But we can talk about ghosts later. Right now, I need you to look to your 10 o'clock because in about 40 seconds, 6 of their fighters are going to try to come through that gap in the rocks, and I can't cover that angle from where I am. That one's yours, Cole. You ready? Cole turned to his team, to Boyd alive, to Reyes alive, to Nair still fighting for Kessler, to Wilson holding the radio like it was the hand of God. And in that frozen corridor on Christmas Eve, cut off from the whole world, they were for the first time all night, not alone. Overwatch element, Cole said, and his voice carried down the line, and every one of them lifted their weapons. You heard the lady? 10 o'clock. On me. Copy, Commander. Let's give her something to work with. And somewhere up in the dark, a woman who was not supposed to exist settled her breathing and waited and watched over 6 strangers as if they were the only people left in the world. The 6 enemy fighters came through the gap in the rocks exactly when Mercer said they would, and Ryan Cole was waiting for them. Now, he said, and his team opened up together a single controlled wall of fire, and the 6 men went down before they'd taken 4 steps. It happened so fast that Reyes stared at the fallen shapes for a full second before he remembered to reload. That's how you do it, Boyd said low and fierce. That's how you do it, Commander. That was her, Cole answered. She saw them coming before we did. She's watching the whole board. He keyed his mic. Mercer, 10 o'clock is clear. 6 down. What's next? Next is you buy your medic 3 minutes, the calm voice said. Because I've been listening, Cole, and I know you've got a man bleeding out back there. And if you don't get him stabilized in the next few minutes, nothing I do out here is going to matter. Am I right? Cole looked back at Nair, still crouched over Kessler, both her hands red to the wrist. She met his eyes and gave a single small shake of her head that told him everything. Kessler was slipping. You're right, Cole said quietly. Then here's what we do. I'm going to make a lot of noise on the East Ridge in about 20 seconds. Every fighter they've got is going to turn and look at the east, because when men are scared, they look toward the thing that's killing them. That gives your medic a window. She works, she doesn't look up, she doesn't worry about the fight. The fight is mine for those 3 minutes. Tell her that. Tell her I've got her back. Cole crawled to Nair through the snow. Priya, listen to me. In 20 seconds, you're going to hear a lot of shooting from the east. Do not look up. Do not stop working. That's Mercer buying you time to save him. She's got the whole east flank. You just saved Kessler. That's your only job in the world right now. Nair's jaw tightened. She was exhausted and afraid, and her hands were cramping from the cold and the pressure, but she nodded. Tell her thank you, she said. Tell her yourself when this is over. Just tell her Ryan, and then the East Ridge lit up. Cole had heard a lot of gunfire in his life, but he had never heard anything like what Mercer did in the next 3 minutes. It wasn't spray, it wasn't panic, it was music. One shot, a pause, other shot, a pause, each round finding a target, each target dropping, and the rhythm of it was so steady and so certain that it began to break something inside the enemy. Cole could hear it even from the fold in the ground, the change in the way the enemy shouted to each other, the fear creeping into voices that had been so confident 20 minutes ago. They had come here to hunt 6 trapped Americans, and now something in the dark was hunting them one clean shot at a time, and they could not find it, and they could not stop it, and men who cannot stop the thing that is killing them begin very quickly to come apart. Behind Cole, Nair worked. She packed the wound, she got the bleeding under control. She started an IV with numb fingers in the freezing dark, threading a needle she could barely feel into a vein she could barely find. And she did it because a stranger on the radio had promised to hold back 40 men so that she could. Pressure's holding, she said finally, and her voice crackled with relief. I've got the bleed. He's not out of the woods, but he's commander. He's stable. He's stable. Kessler's eyes fluttered open. Told you, he whispered. Told you not to carry me. Nobody carried you, Nair said, and she was almost laughing and almost crying at the same time. You just laid there and made me do all the work, same as always. Mercer, Cole said into the radio. Kessler's stable. My medic did it. You bought her the time. Good, Mercer said, and for just a moment the calm cracked and Cole heard something warm underneath it, something that had not had a reason to be warm in a very long time. That's good, Cole. That's real good. Tell your medic she's got steady hands. That's the whole game out here. Steady hands. She says thank you. She doesn't have to thank me. Not for that. Not ever. There was something in the way she said it that made Cole pause, made him file it away. The way a person says never when they mean, I have watched people die because there was nobody to buy them 3 minutes, and I swore I would never let it happen again if I could help it. He didn't ask. There wasn't time. But he heard it. They're regrouping, Mercer said, all business again. I put down maybe 11 of them in the last few minutes, and they've finally figured out I'm on the North Ridge, which means they're about to do the smart thing, and the smart thing is bad for both of us. Listen carefully, Cole, because this is the part where we earn it. Go ahead. And right now they think they're fighting 2 enemies, you in the low ground, me on the high ground. So they're going to split. Half of them are going to keep pressure on you, pin you in place so you can't move. The other half is going to come up the North Ridge after me because they've realized that if they take me off this mountain, you're finished. They're right. So here's the truth. Cole, and I'm only going to say it once, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to have 30 men climbing toward my position. I can slow them. I can't stop them. Eventually they get to me. And when they get to me, you lose your overwatch and you lose this fight. Cole's stomach turned to ice. Then we come to you. We break out of here and we come up the ridge and we fight beside you. No, Mercer said flatly. You've got a wounded man who cannot move, and the second you leave that fold, they cut you to pieces in the open. That's not courage, Cole. That's just dying. You hold your ground. That's the mission. I'm not going to sit in a hole and listen to 30 men overrun the woman who saved my team. Yes, Mercer said. You are, because that's what saving your team requires. And a good commander does the thing his team needs, not the thing his heart wants. You know that. You've always known that. It's why you're still alive after 15 years. And it's why every one of those people down there trusts you. A pause. Don't make me wrong about you now, Cole. Cole closed his eyes. 15 years of leading men had taught him that she was right. And 15 years of leading men had also taught him that being right didn't make it hurt less. How long can you hold them, he asked. Long enough if you do exactly what I say. Here's the plan. You can't come up the ridge as a team, but you've got one man who can move fast and light and quiet, and he can flank the group that's climbing after me. One man coming up behind 30 in this storm, they'd never see him. And if he hits them from behind, while I hit them from above, we catch them between 2 fires on a slope with nowhere to go. That's how 6 people beat 40 Cole, not by matching their numbers, by being smarter than them. Cole looked down the line at his team, one man fast and light and quiet who could climb a ridge in a blizzard and take on the tail of 30 enemy fighters alone. Every eye came to rest on the same person. No, Cole said. Not him. He's 24. I don't care how old he is, Mercer said. I care whether he can move. Can he move, Cole? Because I heard him on the radio doing the drone work, and he kept his voice steady when everything went sideways. And that tells me more about a man than his birthday does. Reyes had gone very still. Then he crawled forward, and he looked at Cole, and his young face was frightened, but it was set. Commander, he said, I can do it. Reyes, I can do it, Reyes said again. You said every round has to count. You said we win by being smart, not by being strong. This is smart, Commander. She's right, and you know she's right. Let me be the one round that counts. Cole stared at him, and in that frozen fold in the ground with the storm screaming and the enemy regrouping and Kessler breathing shallow behind him, Ryan Cole made the hardest kind of decision a leader ever makes. The decision to send someone he loved into the dark alone, because it was the right call, and the right call and the thing he wanted were not the same. Mercer, he said. His name is Reyes. He's 24 years old, and I have known him for 2 years, and I would trade my own life for his without thinking about it. I'm sending him to you. You keep him alive. Do you understand me? You keep that boy alive, or so help me. Cole, her voice was very quiet now. I have watched a lot of young men die because there was no one there to guide them. That is not going to happen tonight. Not on my mountain. Send him to me. I will talk him up every step of that ridge, and I will not let anything touch him. You have my word. And Cole, a breath. My word is the only thing I've got left, so it means everything. Cole gripped Reyes by the back of the neck and pulled him close forehead to forehead. You listen to that woman like she's the voice of God, he said. Every word. You don't get brave. You don't get clever. You do exactly what she says exactly when she says it, and you come back to me. That's an order, Reyes. Come back to me. Copy that, Commander, Reyes whispered. His eyes were wet. Copy that. And then he was gone, slipping out of the fold and into the storm. One small dark shape swallowed by the white, and Cole watched him disappear and felt something in his chest he had not felt since he was a young man himself, watching friends walk into places they might not walk out of. He's moving, Cole said into the radio. He's yours now, Mercer. I've got him, she said. I see him. He moves well, low, quiet, uses the ground. Somebody trained him right. A pause, like, that was you, wasn't it, Cole? You trained him. Some of it. Then some of what keeps him alive tonight is going to be you. Her voice shifted brisk again. Reyes, can you hear me? I hear you, ma'am. His voice came small and tight over the net. Good. First thing, you're not going to call me ma'am. I'm not old enough to be your mother, and I'm too tired to be your commanding officer. You call me Mercer. Second thing, you're going to feel very alone out there. You're not. I am watching you through a scope right now, and I can see the fear coming off you like heat, and that's fine. That's normal. Every good soldier is scared. The trick isn't not being scared. The trick is doing the job scared. Can you do the job scared, Reyes? I think so. That's the right answer. A man who says he's not scared is either lying or useless. Now move to your 2 o'clock. There's a spine of rock that runs up the ridge. It'll hide you from the group that's climbing. Go slow. We've got time. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Move. And so while the storm howled and the enemy fighters began their climb toward the ghost on the north ridge, Tomas Reyes crawled up a mountain in the dark, guided by a woman he had never seen. And Cole sat in a hole in the ground and listened to every word and prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in, that both of them would live. The half of the enemy force that had stayed behind wasted no time. The moment their comrades started up the ridge, they intensified their fire on Cole's position exactly as Mercer had predicted, pinning the team down so completely that Cole couldn't have lifted his head above the rocks if he'd wanted to. They're keeping us honest, Boyd said, hunched beside him, making sure we can't move to help her. This is the plan she talked about. This is the plan. Then the plan's working, which is either very good or very bad, depending on how you look at it. Look at it, however, keeps you shooting straight, Danny. Boyd almost smiled. Copy that. Up on the ridge, the enemy climbers were making good progress, and Mercer let them. Cole heard her voice drop into something even calmer and more focused, the voice of a person entering the part of the work that mattered most. Reyes, stop where you are. Get flat. Don't move. There's a scout 20 meters to your left, and if you move, he'll see you. A long pause. Cole held his breath. Okay, he's looking the other way. Do not breathe loud. He's going to walk past you in about 10 seconds. You let him. You do not engage. He's not the target. If you take him, you give away your whole position and this all falls apart. Let him walk, trust me. 10 seconds pass like 10 years. Then he's past you. Good man. That was the hardest thing I'll ask you to do all night, to not fight when every part of you wanted to. You just proved you can follow orders under pressure. That's worth more than 100 kills. Now move up. Slow. Cole let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. You're good at this, he said quietly into the radio on the channel only he and Mercer shared. I've had a lot of practice talking scared kids up mountains, Mercer said. Too much practice. The ones before Reyes. Did they all make it? The pause was long enough that Cole thought she wouldn't answer. No, Mercer said finally. Not all of them. That's why I don't miss any more, Cole. Because I remember every single one I couldn't save. And when you carry that many ghosts, you get very, very good at making sure you don't add to the number. A beat. Now get off my private channel and go run your team. I've got a boy to walk up a hill. The enemy fighters were nearing the top of the ridge now, closing on the position where they believed the sniper was hiding. And here Cole learned the second thing about Mercer that he would never forget, because at the exact moment the climbers reached the crest and prepared to swarm the shooter's nest, they found it empty. Mercer wasn't there. She had never been there. She had fired from that position 4 times, moved, and left it as bait, and 30 enemy fighters had climbed a mountain in a blizzard to capture a ghost who was already gone. And now they were bunched together at the top of an exposed ridge, out of breath, out of cover, having just discovered that they'd walked into nothing, which was the precise instant Mercer opened fire on them from her real position, 100 meters to the east, and Reyes opened fire on them from behind, and the 30 men found themselves caught between 2 guns on a bare slope with the storm at their backs and nowhere in the world to hide. Now, Reyes, Mercer's voice cracked across the net, no longer calm, sharp as a blade. Now, controlled bursts left to right, don't stop. I've got the top, you take the bottom, go, go, go. Cole couldn't see it. He could only hear it. But he heard the whole thing, the shock in the enemy's shouts as the trap closed, the disciplined rhythm of 2 guns firing from 2 directions, the screams, the panic, the slope coming apart. He heard Reyes's voice high and fast and terrified and alive calling out targets. He heard Mercer's voice guiding him through it, steady as a heartbeat. Good, reload, I'll cover, take your time, breathe. There's a man on your right, take him good. Now the 2 by the rock, I see them on my mark. And then as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The shooting on the ridge stopped. The storm rushed in to fill the silence. Reyes, Cole said into the radio, and he could not keep his voice steady, not for this. Reyes, report. Reyes, talk to me. Are you? I'm here, Commander. The young man's voice was shaking so hard he could barely speak, but it was there. It was alive. I'm here. I'm okay. Commander, we got them. All of them. The whole group that came up the ridge. There's nobody left up here, Commander. It's just me and her. Mercer, Cole said. Confirm the ridge is clear. Ridge is clear, Cole. She sounded tired now. Truly tired, the exhaustion of a person who has been carrying an impossible weight for a very, very long time. Your boy did good. He did real good. He froze once right at the start, and I talked him through it, and after that, he was steady as a rock. You should be proud of him. I'm proud of him, and I only met him 20 minutes ago. Cole put his head down against the cold rock and for just a moment let himself feel all of it. The fear and the relief and the fierce, impossible love he felt for these people. Then he lifted his head because he was still the commander, and there was still a fight, and the half of the enemy force pinning them down was still very much alive. Half their force is gone, he said, but we've still got 20 of them keeping us honest down here. About that, Mercer said. And now they know their flanking group is dead, which means they know I'm not going anywhere, which means they've got a decision to make. And I don't think they're going to like any of their options. Here's the good news, Cole. I've got the high ground. I've got clear lines on their position now that they can't hide from me. And I've got your boy Reyes coming down the ridge to link up with me. Here's the bad news. There's always bad news. There's always bad news, she agreed. The bad news is that the man running this operation is smart and he's cornered, and a smart cornered man does one of 2 things. He either runs or he does something desperate. And I've been listening to how this guy fights all night, Cole, and I don't think he's a runner. She was right. She was right about all of it, and Cole would spend a long time afterward marveling at how completely she'd read a battle she was watching through a rifle scope in a blizzard. Because the enemy commander who had come to this valley so certain of his victory was now standing on a mountain that had swallowed half his men, and he was doing the math the same way Cole had done it hours ago, and he did not like the answer. He had lost 20 fighters to a ghost he could not find and a handful of Americans who would not die. His flanking force was gone, his mortar teams were being hunted, and the storm that had been his greatest ally was now hiding his enemy just as well as it had once hidden him. So he made a choice, and it was the desperate one. Cole, Mercer's voice snapped taut. movement in their position. A lot of it. They're no. No, no, that's not a retreat. A pause, and when she spoke again, there was real urgency in her voice for the first time all night. They're consolidating for a full assault. Everything they've got left all at once straight at your position. He's decided he can't win the long game, so he's going to throw everything he has at you and try to overwhelm you before I can drop enough of them to matter. Cole, 20 men are about to charge your fold all at the same time, and I cannot kill 20 men fast enough to stop that. Cole's mind raced. How long? 90 seconds, maybe less. Reyes, where are you? Halfway down the ridge, Commander. Can you get to Mercer's position and give her a second gun? Working on it. Mercer, talk to me. What do we do? You've been right all night. What do we do? And here in the last 90 seconds before the storm broke over them, Ava Mercer did the thing that would define her to Cole and his team for the rest of their lives. Because a lesser Overwatch, a purely tactical mind, would have stayed on the high ground, kept firing, and accepted that some of the SEALs would die in the assault. It was the correct tactical choice. It kept the sniper alive and effective. It was exactly what the manuals would say to do. Mercer threw the manual away. I'm coming down, she said. Cole's blood went cold. Say again. You heard me? 20 men are about to hit your position, and you cannot stop them from the ground, and I cannot stop them from up here, but I can stop them if I'm down there with you in the fold, adding a third gun exactly where you need it at exactly the moment they hit. So I'm leaving my Overwatch. I'm coming off this mountain. I'm coming to you. Mercer, no. You lose your position. You lose your advantage. They'll be able to... Cole. Her voice was absolutely calm again, the calm of a person who has already made peace with a decision. I have spent years staying on the high ground, staying safe, staying hidden, staying alive by never ever coming down into the kill zone where I could get hurt. And you know what that got me? It got me a lot of ghosts, Cole. It got me a lot of nights lying awake doing the math on the ones I watched die from a safe distance because coming down would have been too dangerous. A breath. Not tonight. Tonight nobody dies because I was too careful to come down off my mountain. Now get your team ready because in 60 seconds you're going to have 20 men and one ghost all arriving at the same time and only the ghost is on your side. And then before Cole could argue, before he could order her to stay put, before he could do anything at all, Ava Mercer left the safest place on the battlefield and started running down into the most dangerous one, and the enemy assault began. They came all at once exactly as she'd said, 20 men rising out of the storm and charging the fold in the ground with everything they had. Cole's team met them with disciplined fire dropping the front rank, but there were too many coming too fast, and Cole could see in an instant that Mercer had been right from the ground. They could not stop this. The line was going to break. In seconds, the enemy would be in the fold with them, and then it would be knives and fists and bodies. And Kessler couldn't fight, and Nair was one gun, and there were simply too many. Hold, Cole roared. Hold the line, hold. Boyd's rifle clicked empty. I'm out. Commander, I'm out. Grab a pistol. A fighter reached the edge of the fold, weapon raised, standing directly over Nair and the wounded Kessler, and Cole was too far away, and Boyd was reaching for his sidearm, and Nair looked up into the face of the man about to kill her and her wounded friend. And the man's head snapped back, and he fell, and behind him, sprinting out of the storm at a dead run, firing on the move with a precision that made no sense at that speed, came Ava Mercer. Cole saw her for the first time then. Not a voice on the radio, a person, moving faster than anyone had a right to move over that ground, dropping enemy fighters with single shots while she ran, and she hit the flank of the assault like a thunderbolt, and everything changed in an instant. The enemy had planned for 2 guns down in the fold. They had planned for a sniper far away on the high ground. They had not planned for the sniper to be among them at close range, moving through them like something that could not be touched, and the shock of it broke their assault in half. On me, Mercer shouted, and it was strange to hear the radio voice as a real voice in the air, and Cole realized she was shouting to his team, taking command of the moment the way a great soldier does, without asking permission, because there is no time. SEALs on me, push out, push out. Now don't let them consolidate. We hit them while they're confused. And Cole, who had commanded men for 15 years, who did not take orders from anyone in a firefight, heard the stranger's voice and did not hesitate for a single second. You heard her, he bellowed. On the ghost, push out, push out. They rose out of the fold and they hit the enemy together. Cole's exhausted team and the woman who was not supposed to exist, and for 90 seconds the frozen valley became the most violent place on earth. Reyes arrived from the ridge at a full sprint and added his gun to theirs. Boyd fought with a pistol and then with his hands. Nair covered Kessler and dropped two men who tried to circle behind them. And in the center of it all was Mercer, moving through the chaos with an impossible calm, always in the right place, always facing the right direction, dropping the fighter about to shoot Boyd, dropping the fighter about to grenade Reyes, seeming to see the whole battle at once and be everywhere in it. And then as suddenly as it had come, the assault broke. The enemy fighters who were still alive realized they were being cut apart, and the fear that Mercer had been feeding them all night finally overwhelmed them, and they broke and ran, scattering back into the storm they had come from. The valley went quiet. Cole stood in the snow, breathing hard, his rifle still up, and slowly he lowered it and turned, and for the first time he looked directly at the woman who had saved his team. She was standing a few feet away, breathing hard snow in her hair, and she looked back at him, and neither of them said anything for a long moment, because some things don't have words. Then Boyd, of all people, broke the silence. He walked up to Mercer, this hard old warrior who had been ready to die an hour ago, and he stopped in front of her, and he said in a voice thick with something he didn't try to hide, "Ma'am, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you came from. But my daughter turns 9 tomorrow, and because of you, she's going to have a father to see it happen." He swallowed hard. "I don't have anything to give you that's worth that. But you've got it anyway. Whatever it is, whatever you ever need, you've got it." Mercer looked at him, and for just a moment, the calm cracked, and Cole saw something in her face that he hadn't expected. Not pride, not satisfaction, but a kind of raw, aching disbelief. The look of a person who has spent so long in the dark that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be thanked, to be seen to matter to someone. "Go home to your daughter, Master Chief," she said quietly. "That's all the thanks I need. Every single one of you goes home. That's the whole point. That's the only point." Reyes came up beside her, then still shaking, still wild-eyed, and he looked at her the way a person looks at someone who has given them their life back. "You saved me," he said, "up on that ridge. You talked me through. I would have died up there. I would have frozen and died, and You saved yourself, Reyes," Mercer said, and she put her hand on his shoulder. "I just reminded you that you could. You did the hard part. You did the mind scared. Remember that. As long as you live, you remember that you did the mob scared, because that's the thing that separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't." She looked around at all of them, then at Cole, at Boyd, at Reyes, at Nair, still crouched over Kessler, at Wilson, clutching his broken radio. "Your man on the ground. The wounded one. How is he?" "Stable," Nair said. "Because of you. Because you bought me 3 minutes. Then we're not done, because Stable isn't saved, and this storm is going to clear in a few hours, and when it does, you need a helicopter in this valley to get him to a hospital. So here's what we're going to do." And just like that, she was in command of the situation again, calm and clear and certain the ghost who had appeared out of the dark and taken 6 strangers and made them into something that could survive. "Wilson, that radio, can you get me one clear transmission if I tell you exactly how to route it?" Wilson blinked at her. "I maybe. The long-range set is, I know what's wrong with it. I've fixed worse in worse weather. Come here. I'm going to show you how to get one message out of this valley." She knelt beside him and took the broken radio in her hands, and as she worked, Cole watched her, and he understood finally that this woman was not just a sniper. She was something far more than that. She knew tactics, and she knew radios, and she knew how to talk a frightened boy up a mountain, and she knew how to read the mind of an enemy commander from a mile away in a storm, and no ordinary soldier knew all of those things. This was someone who had been trained to the very highest level of a very secret world. "Mercer," Cole said slowly, "before you get us that helicopter, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." She didn't look up from the radio. "Ask. Who are you? Really, not the voice on the radio, not the ghost. Who are you, and how does someone who fights like you exist without me or anyone I know ever having heard of you?" Ava Mercer's hands went still on the broken radio, and the silence that followed was so long and so complete that even the storm seemed to hold its breath. "You want the truth," Mercer said finally. Her hands stayed still on the radio. "Most people don't. They think they do. Then they hear it, and it changes how they look at you, and they wish they'd never asked. I've buried friends whose names I can't say out loud in certain rooms, Cole said. I know how the secret world works. I'm not asking to write it down. I'm asking because my whole team's lives are in your hands right now, and I want to know whose hands those are. Mercer looked up at him then, and in her eyes Cole saw a weariness so deep it seemed to have no bottom. My name is Ava Mercer, she said, Captain, United States Army. Or I was. I was one of 9 people in a program that doesn't have a name you'd recognize. We were the ones they sent when a mission couldn't have an American face on it. When there could be no record, no rescue, no acknowledgement. We went in alone, we did the impossible, and we came out alone, and if we didn't come out, nobody came looking, because officially we were never there. She paused. 4 years ago, I was on a mission in the mountains. Not these mountains, but mountains like these, and I was betrayed. Betrayed by who? By the people who sent me. Her jaw tightened. The intelligence I was given was wrong. Not wrong by accident, wrong on purpose. I was walked into an ambush by someone in my own chain of command because I had become inconvenient to a man who needed a certain operation to fail in a certain way, and I was the failure he'd chosen. 11 people died in that valley, Cole. My whole team plus the people we'd gone in to protect. Everyone but me. I was left for dead. Shot twice, buried under snow, bleeding out at the bottom of a ravine where nobody would ever look. She said it flatly, the way people say the things that have stopped being able to hurt them, because they hurt so much, they went numb. And you know what they did back home? They declared me killed in action. Not because they thought I was dead, because it was cleaner that way. A dead operator can't testify. A dead operator can't tell anyone what really happened in that valley. So they buried me on a paper before I'd even finished bleeding into the snow. Cole stood very still. Around him, his team had gone silent, all of them listening, even Kessler with his eyes half open on the ground. But you didn't die, Reyes said quietly. No, Mercer said. I didn't die. I crawled out of that ravine over 3 days. I don't remember most of it. I remember deciding somewhere around the second night that I was not going to give the man who betrayed me the satisfaction of being right. So I lived. And when I was strong enough to walk, I made a choice. I could try to come back, try to prove what happened, try to fight my way back onto the record. But the man who betrayed me was powerful, and I was a ghost. And a ghost has no proof and no protection. He'd have finished the job the second I surfaced. So I didn't surface. I stayed dead. And I disappeared into these mountains and the ones like them, and I made myself into something they couldn't kill because they didn't know it existed. And what is that? Cole asked. What did you make yourself into? Mercer's mouth curved, but there was no joy in it. The thing that answers when nobody else will. There are distress calls that go out into the dark coal, teams that get cut off, missions that go wrong in places where officially there's no one to help. Most of the time nobody hears them, and the people making them die alone the way I almost died. But I hear them. I've spent 4 years listening on the frequencies nobody watches, moving through the places nobody goes. And when I hear a team that's about to be erased the way I was erased, I answer. She looked around at them. I heard Wilson tonight, sending his call out into the dark over and over to nobody. And I thought about the fact that it's Christmas Eve. And I thought about 11 people who died in the snow because nobody came. Her voice caught just slightly. So I came. The silence stretched. It was Nair who broke it, still crouched. There were Kessler tears on her face that had nothing to do with the cold. You've been doing this for 4 years, she said. Alone, saving people who'll never know your name. Getting nothing back. I get something back, Mercer said. Every time a call I answer ends with the team going home, instead of dying in the snow, I get one ghost lighter. I've got a lot of ghosts, Nair. I'll be paying them off for the rest of my life. Tonight I paid off 6. She turned back to the radio in her hands. Or I will have once I get you that helicopter. So let me work. But Cole wasn't ready to let it go, because something she'd said had caught in his mind like a hook and it wouldn't let him rest. The man who betrayed you, he said, the one who had you declared dead. You said he was in your chain of command. You said he was powerful. Mercer's hand slowed on the radio. Do you know his name? I know his name, Mercer said quietly. Is he still in power? And now Mercer stopped working entirely, and she looked up at Cole, and something in her face had gone very cold and very still. "Why are you asking me that, Cole?" "Because," Cole said slowly, "we were sent here on a reconnaissance mission that turned into a slaughter. We were told this corridor would be empty. We were told there'd be minimal contact. And instead we walked into 40 trained fighters who knew exactly where we'd be, who had jammers and mortars set up in advance, who shot down our drone in the first minute like they'd been waiting for it." He watched her face. "That's not bad luck, Mercer. That's not a coincidence. Somebody walked us into an ambush, the same way somebody walked you into one 4 years ago. Somebody sent 6 SEALs into a valley to die with bad intelligence on purpose. And I want to know if it's the same somebody." The wind howled through the valley. Mercer stared at Cole for a long, long moment, and when she spoke, her voice had changed entirely. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by something sharp and dangerous and fully awake. "Who gave you this mission, Cole specifically? Whose name is on your orders?" The tasking came down through a special activities channel. The authorizing officer was a colonel named... Cole stopped because Mercer had gone absolutely white. "Mercer, what's wrong? What is it?" "Say the name," she whispered. "Colonel Marcus Vance." The name hit her like a physical blow. Cole watched her flinch, watched her hand tighten on the radio until her knuckles went white, watched 4 years of buried pain rise to the surface of her face all at once. "That's him," she said. Her voice was barely audible. "That's the man who betrayed me. That's the man who had 11 of my people killed and had me declared dead. Marcus Vance." She looked up at Cole, and there was something almost like horror in her eyes. "He's doing it again. He walked your team into this valley the exact same way he walked mine, which means..." She stopped, and Cole watched her mind race through the implications faster than he could follow. "Which means this was never a reconnaissance mission, Cole. You were never meant to watch this corridor. You were meant to die in it. This whole thing was a setup from the beginning." "Why?" Cole demanded. "Why would a colonel murder 6 of his own men? What's in this valley that's worth that?" "I don't know yet," Mercer said. "But I know Marcus Vance, and Marcus Vance doesn't kill people who are inconvenient to him. He kills people who know something he can't afford them to know, or people who are in the way of something he wants. So the question isn't, why does he want you dead? The question is, what did you see, or what were you about to see that made you a threat?" She was already moving, already thinking, the exhaustion completely gone now. "Your mission. What exactly were you tasked to monitor?" Not the cover story, the actual coordinates, the actual target. Cole pulled the mission data from memory. "We were assigned to observe movement through this corridor and log any vehicle traffic heading north. Specifically, anything moving toward a set of grid coordinates about 6 kilometers north of here. We weren't told what was at those coordinates, just to watch what moved toward them." Mercer went very still again. 6 kilometers north," she repeated. "There's nothing 6 kilometers north of here, Cole. Nothing on any map. It's empty mountain." A pause. "Which is exactly the kind of place Marcus Vance likes to put things he doesn't want on any map. You think there's something up there?" "I think," Mercer said slowly, "that your mission wasn't reconnaissance-y and it wasn't a suicide run. I think it was both. I think Vance had a problem, something 6 kilometers north that he needed to protect, and he had a team of SEALs who might stumble onto it. So he solved both problems at once. He sent you into a valley he'd already stacked with fighters, gave you a mission that pointed you straight at the thing he's hiding, and arranged for you to die before you could ever report what you found. 6 dead SEALs, a tragic training accident, or a recon mission gone wrong. No survivors, no questions. Clean." Her jaw tightened. "That's Vance. That's exactly how his mind works. I've spent 4 years studying it." Boyd spoke up, then his voice grim. "So we were never supposed to walk out of here?" "No," Mercer said. "You weren't. And you wouldn't have if I hadn't been listening on the guard frequencies tonight." She looked around at all of them. "Do you understand what that means? It means the same man who tried to erase me 4 years ago just tried to erase all of you tonight. And it means that for the first time in 4 years, there are people who know what Marcus Vance really is. Living witnesses. 6 of them." Something kindled in her eyes, something that had been dead for a long time. "He made a mistake tonight. He sent me a team of witnesses and didn't even know he was doing it." Cole felt the shape of it settling over him, vast and terrible. "If we walk out of this valley alive," he said, We're a threat to a colonel who's already shown he'll murder his own men to protect himself. Yes, which means getting that helicopter in here isn't the end of it. Because the second we surface, the second we start telling people what happened, Vance is going to try to finish the job. Now you're thinking like me, Mercer said, which is a terrible thing to happen to a person but useful right now. She bent back to the radio. Here's where we stand. We've got a wounded man who needs a hospital, so we need that helicopter no matter what. But we can't just call it in through normal channels because normal channels run through the same command structure that Vance controls. And the moment we transmit, he'll know there are survivors. And he'll have people waiting at whatever hospital that Blackhawk flies to. She worked as she talked, her fingers moving over the damaged radio with the certainty of someone who had rebuilt worse in worse places. So we do it smart. We get the wounded man out through a channel Vance can't see to people Vance can't reach. And we keep the rest of us dark until we've got something Vance can't wave away. And how do we do that? Cole asked. You've been off the grid for 4 years. You don't have a chain of command. You don't have channels. You told me yourself your word is the only thing you've got left. Mercer's hand stopped, and for the first time all night, Cole saw her hesitate, not from fear, but from the weight of a decision she clearly didn't want to make. That's not entirely true, she said quietly. I have one channel, one person, someone from the old days who knows that I'm alive. Someone I swore I would never contact unless it was the end of the world, because every time I reach out to them, I put their life in danger. She closed her eyes for a moment. I've kept that promise for 4 years. I've been alone for 4 years, partly to protect that one person. And now I'm going to have to break it because 6 of you are going to die if I don't, and a wounded man is going to bleed out in the snow. She opened her eyes. So I guess it's the end of the world after all. Who is it? Cole asked. Who's the one person? Mercer looked at him. The only other survivor of what Vance did 4 years ago, she said. There were 9 of us in the program. I told you 11 people died in that valley, my team of 8 plus 3 we'd gone in to protect. But there was one member of my program who wasn't in the valley that day. One who was back at the operations center running our comms, watching it all happen on a screen, listening to my team die in real time, and unable to do anything about it. Her voice dropped. Her name is Sergeant First Class Dana Okoro. She was our communications specialist. She heard everything that happened in that valley. She heard the intelligence come in that walked us into the ambush. She knew it was wrong. She tried to warn us, and Vance had already cut our comms. A long pause. Dana is the only living person besides me who knows the truth about what Vance did. And she spent 4 years hiding it, sitting on evidence that could destroy him, waiting for the day I'd come back so we could use it together. She thinks I'm dead too, Cole. Everyone does. But there's a way to reach her. A dead drop protocol we set up before that last mission in case everything went wrong. I've never used it. I swore I never would. She took a breath. Tonight I'm going to use it. And when Dana Okoro gets that signal, she's going to know that Ava Mercer is alive. And she's going to bring everything she's been hiding for 4 years. And together we are going to make Marcus Vance answer for every single person he's put in the ground. The valley was silent except for the wind. Cole's team stared at her, and Cole felt the ground shifting beneath the entire night, felt the story growing far larger than a firefight in the snow. This wasn't a rescue anymore. This was the beginning of a reckoning, 4 years in the making. There's a problem, though, Mercer said, and the grim edge was back in her voice. The dead drop protocol takes time. Dana won't get the signal for hours, and she won't be able to act on it for longer than that. And we don't have hours because your man Kessler doesn't have hours, and because Vance is going to figure out very soon that his ambush failed. She looked up at the sky where the storm was still raging, but Cole thought maybe just slightly less than before. When those 40 fighters were killing you, they were transmitting, reporting to someone, and that someone was almost certainly reporting to Vance, which means Vance is sitting somewhere right now waiting to hear that 6 SEALs are dead in a valley. And when that report doesn't come when he realizes the fighters he paid have gone silent, he's going to know something went wrong. And Marcus Vance does not leave loose ends. He'll send a second wave, a cleanup team. Professionals this time, not hired mountain fighters. And they'll come fast before we can get out, before we can get Kessler to a hospital, before Dana can act. That's the race we're in now, Cole. It's not us against 40 fighters anymore. It's us against the clock and against a man with the entire resources of a covert command structure at his disposal. How long do we have? Cole asked. Before the storm clears enough to fly, a few hours if we're lucky. Before Vance sends a cleanup team. She shook her head. I don't know. Could be hours, could be less. Depends how paranoid he's feeling tonight. She finally finished with the radio and handed it back to Wilson. There, it's rerouted. You've got one clean transmission, maybe two, before the cold kills the battery. Use them wisely because they're all we get. What do we transmit? Wilson asked. 2 messages, Mercer said. The first goes to a medevac unit. I know a real one run by people who owe me their lives and won't ask questions and won't report up the chain. They'll come for Kessler and they'll take him somewhere Vance can't find him. That's message 1, and it saves your wounded man. She turned to Cole. The second message is the dead drop signal to Dana. That's the one that starts the war. She held Cole's eyes. But I need you to understand something before we send it. Cole, the moment we transmit that second signal, there's no going back. Right now, you and your team could walk out of these mountains, report a recon mission, gone bad, and disappear back into your lives. Vance might still come for you, but you'd have a chance to run to hide to try to survive as ordinary men. But if we send that signal to Dana, if we start this thing, then you and your team become part of a fight against a powerful man who has already killed to protect himself. And you don't get to walk away from that. You're in it until it's finished, one way or another. She paused. So this next choice isn't mine to make. It's yours. You're the commander. These are your people. Do we save your wounded man and quietly disappear? Or do we send the signal that turns 6 survivors into the men who bring down Marcus Vance? Cole looked at his team. At Boyd, who wanted to see his daughter turn 10. At Reyes, 24 and still shaking. At Nair, exhausted and covered in Kessler's blood. At Wilson, holding the radio. At Kessler himself, pale on the ground, watching with half-open eyes. And it was Kessler who spoke first, his voice weak but absolutely clear. Commander, he said, that colonel sent us here to die. He sat somewhere warm and safe, and he decided that 6 of us, that Reyes, that's 24 years old, that we were all worth less than whatever he's hiding up on that mountain. He coughed and winced and kept going. I've got a hole in my side because of that man. Nair's got my blood all over her because of that man. If we walk away and let him keep doing this to the next team, and the team after that, he shook his head. I couldn't live with that. I'd rather bleed out right here than walk away from it. Nobody's bleeding out, Nair said fiercely, but he's right, Commander. He's right. Boyd nodded slowly. My daughter's going to ask me someday what I did when it mattered. I'd like to have an answer I'm not ashamed of. Reyes swallowed hard. Mercer came into the dark for us, he said. She came off that mountain when it was the most dangerous thing she could do for 6 people she'd never met. I'm not going to be less brave than that. Send the signal. Cole looked at Wilson last. Wilson, who had sent his distress call out into the dark over and over to nobody, and who had been answered. Wilson met his commander's eyes and said simply, I'm ready when you are, Commander. Cole turned back to Mercer, and for the first time since she'd appeared out of the storm, he smiled a hard, grim, dangerous smile that she recognized because it was the same one she wore. Send both signals, he said, and save my man, and start the war. Something shifted in Mercer's face. 4 years of solitude, 4 years of ghosts, 4 years of answering distress calls alone and vanishing before anyone could thank her. And now, for the first time, she was not alone. She had 6 people standing with her, choosing to stand, with her choosing to walk into a fight that wasn't theirs because it was the right thing to do. Okay, she said softly. Okay. She turned to Wilson. Send message 1 first, word for word, exactly as I give it to you. She began to recite a string of code words and coordinates, the language of a secret world, and Wilson transmitted them into the dark. For a long moment, there was nothing but static. And then a voice came in back, a man's voice, rough and disbelieving. Say again your authentication. Say again. That code hasn't been used in 4 years. That code belongs to somebody who's dead. Mercer took the radio from Wilson. She keyed it, and she spoke, and her voice did not shake. This is the somebody who's dead, she said. Hello, Ramirez. It's been a long time. I need a medevac. No questions, no chain. 1 wounded American, and I need it the second this storm lets you fly. Can you do that for me, or has retirement made you soft? The silence on the other end lasted 3 full seconds, and then the man's voice came back thick with emotion. Ava Mercer, my God, we buried you. We had a service. I carried your... His voice broke. Where are you? Give me the grid. I don't care about the storm. I'll fly through it. Just tell me where you are. Easy, Ramirez, easy. The wounded man can't wait, but he can hold for the storm. I'll give you the grid. But listen to me. This is dark. This never happened. The man we're getting out was never in this valley, and neither was I. Do you understand? I understand. God, Ava, I understand. Give me the grid. Mercer gave him the coordinates. And when she was done, she lowered the radio, and Cole saw that her hand was trembling just slightly, the first crack in the armor she'd worn all night. 4 years of being a ghost, and someone had just wept at the sound of her voice. That's your man's ride, she said quietly to Cole. Ramirez will come. He'll take Kessler somewhere safe. That part's done. She took a breath and squared her shoulders, and her face hardened again. Now the second signal, the one to Dana, the one that starts everything. She keyed the radio one more time, and she paused her thumb on the transmit key, and Cole understood that she was standing at the edge of a line she had sworn for 4 years never to cross. Once I send this, she said almost to herself, Ava Mercer isn't dead anymore. Not to Dana, not to Vance once he figures it out, not to anyone. She closed her eyes. I've been dead a long time. It was safer that way. Being dead means nobody can hurt you because there's nothing left to hurt. She opened her eyes, and there was a fierce, terrible resolve in them. But it also means you're not really living. And I'm tired of not living. I'm tired of being a ghost. So, she pressed the transmit key, and into the dark, to a woman 2,000 miles away who had spent 4 years grieving her Ava Mercer, sent 5 words that would bring a colonel's world crashing down. Donna, it's Ava. I'm alive. She released the key, and the storm howled around them, and 6 seals and 1 ghost stood together in the frozen dark waiting for the answer that would change everything. Knowing that somewhere out there a man named Marcus Vance was about to learn that the 2 people who could destroy him were both still breathing. The answer didn't come right away. The dead drop protocol wasn't a phone call. It was a series of relays, a message bouncing through channels designed to hide its source. And Mercer had warned them it would take time. So they waited. And waiting, Cole would learn, was its own kind of battle. How long, he asked. Could be an hour. Could be 6. Mercer set the radio down carefully as if it were something precious. Dana has to receive the signal where if it's really me and not a trap, and then decide whether to answer. And she'll be careful because being careful is the only reason she's still alive. If she thinks for 1 second that Vance has found the dead drop and is using it to bait her out, she'll go dark and we'll never hear from her. She looked at Cole. So we wait, and while we wait, we survive, because Vance isn't waiting. She was right. She was right about everything that night, and Cole had stopped being surprised by it, because 40 minutes after they sent the signal to Dana Mercer's head came up sharply, and she went still in that particular way that Cole had learned meant danger. Movement, she said quietly. North, coming down out of the high country. She was already reaching for her rifle. That's not the fighters we scattered. Those men ran east away from the mountain. This is coming from the north, from the direction of those coordinates you were sent to watch. Her jaw tightened. This is the cleanup team. Vance's people. They came faster than I thought. How many? Can't tell yet, but they're moving like professionals, not hired guns. Spread out using the terrain, no wasted motion. She turned to the team and her voice dropped into command. Listen to me, all of us. The men we fought earlier were dangerous because there were a lot of them. These men are dangerous because they're good. There won't be 40 of them. There'll be 6, maybe 8. But every one of them will be as good as the best man on your team. And they're coming here for one reason, to make sure nobody who was in this valley tonight walks out of it alive. She looked at Kessler, which means we've got a new problem. Kessler can't move, Ramirez can't fly until the storm clears, and a cleanup team is going to be on top of us before that helicopter can get here. Cole felt the trap closing again tighter this time. So we're pinned again, with a wounded man again. Not exactly, Mercer said. Last time you were in open ground with no options. This time you've got me. You've got high ground you can use. And most importantly, You've got the one thing a cleanup team never expects. She almost smiled. You've got someone who thinks exactly like they do. I spent years being the person Vance sent to erase inconvenient people. I know how these teams work because I used to be one. I know how they move, how they think, what they assume. And right now, they're assuming they're walking into a valley full of wounded, exhausted, demoralized survivors who are easy to finish off. Her eyes went hard. Let's make sure that's exactly what they think right up until the moment it kills them. What followed was a lesson in warfare that Cole would never forget as long as he lived. Because Mercer didn't just fight the cleanup team. She conducted them the way she'd conducted the whole night, turning their own professionalism into the weapon that destroyed them. She had the team leave signs of panic and disarray, a dropped weapon, here drag marks there, the appearance of a broken unit trying desperately to flee. She positioned Cole's people not to fight but to hide. Tucked into cover she chose herself, told to hold fire no matter what until she gave the word. And then she went up into the high ground alone, one last time, and she waited for the professionals to walk into the trap that their own assumptions had built for them. They're going to see what looks like a wounded team trying to run, she said over the radio, her voice a whisper now. They're going to move to cut off the escape route because that's what the playbook says. And when they do, they're going to funnel right through a piece of ground I've already ranged. Nobody moves, nobody breathes loud. You let them come all the way in. And when I fire the first shot, everybody fires, not before. The whole thing depends on them believing they're winning right up until the second they're not. Cole crouched in the cover she'd assigned him, his heart hammering, and watched the dark shapes of the cleanup team materialize out of the storm. She was right about them. He could see it in how they moved, economical, silent, deadly professionals, doing a job they'd done many times before. There were 7 of them. 7 of the best killers Vance could send moving to slaughter what they believed was a broken team. They came through the funnel exactly as Mercer had predicted. And Mercer opened fire. The first man dropped before the sound of the shot even reached Cole's ears. And then everything happened at once. Cole's team opened up from 3 sides. Mercer fired from above, and the cleanup team, so confident 60 seconds ago, found themselves caught in a killing box they'd walked into blind. But these men were not the mountain fighters from before. They didn't panic. They didn't break. Even dying, they fought back with lethal discipline, and Cole heard rounds cracking past his head, saw one of his cover positions disintegrate under return fire, and understood that even with every advantage Mercer had built, this was going to cost them. Boyd, they're trying to break left, cut them off. On it, Commander. Reyes, stay down, let Mercer work the ones in the open. They're pushing toward Kessler, Nair screamed. 2 of them, they're trying to get to Kessler. And that was the moment the whole battle balanced on a knife's edge, because 2 of the cleanup operators, realizing they were caught, had done the coldest and most professional thing possible. They'd broken toward the wounded man because killing the helpless target was the mission. And a professional completes the mission even as he dies. They moved fast, faster than Cole could react, weapons swinging toward Kessler and Nair. And Cole was too far, and Boyd was pinned. And in a fraction of a second, 2 of Vance's killers were going to murder his medic and his wounded man both. Mercer killed the first one from 400 meters away, a shot that Cole would replay in his mind for years, threading a bullet through a gap in the rocks that lasted less than a second. But the second operator reached Nair. He was on her before she could bring her rifle up, and he was bigger and stronger and trained for exactly this. And he drove her down into the snow and got his hands on his weapon and turned it toward the helpless Kessler. And there was no shot for Mercer. No angle, nothing anyone could do, except that Kessler, who was supposed to be helpless, who had a hole in his side and had been fading in and out of consciousness for 2 hours, reached up with the last of his strength and grabbed the barrel of the operator's weapon and shoved it into the snow at the exact moment it fired. And in the half-second of confusion that bought Nair came up off the ground with her sidearm and put 3 rounds into the operator's chest at point-blank range. And he fell backward into the snow and did not move. The valley went silent. Nair, Cole was moving before he'd finished the word. Nair, are you hit? Talk to me. I'm okay. She was gasping, shaking, kneeling in the snow with the pistol still up. I'm okay, I'm not hit. Kessler grabbed the gun. He grabbed the gun. Oh my God. Cole reached them and dropped to his knees beside Kessler, who was gray, now gray as ash, his last reserve of strength spent on that one impossible act. Kessler, look at me. Stay with me. Told you, Kessler whispered, and there was the ghost of a smile on his bloodless lips. Told you I wasn't just gonna lay here. You crazy son of a... Cole's voice broke. Don't you dare quit on me now. That helicopter's coming. You hear me? You hold on. Trying, Commander, Kessler breathed. Trying. Cleanup team's down. Mercer's voice came over the radio, tight and controlled. All 7. But listen to me, that fight cost us time and it cost us noise. And Vance is going to know within minutes that his second team failed too, which means the next thing he sends isn't going to be a team. Cole, how's your wounded man? Cole looked down at Kessler. Bad, he said quietly. He's bad, Mercer. He used everything he had left saving Nair. If that helicopter doesn't come soon, then let's get it here soon. She was already moving, coming down off the high ground toward them. The storm's breaking. I can see stars to the north. Ramirez can fly in it now if he's willing to risk it, and knowing Ramirez, he's already in the air. She reached them and knelt beside Kessler, and she looked at him with an expression Cole hadn't seen from her before. Not the calm of the sniper, but something softer. Something almost tender. Hey, she said quietly. Kessler, is it? You just did something most men wouldn't have the guts to do. You grabbed a live weapon with your bare hand to save your friend, and you did it while you were bleeding out. That's about the bravest thing I've seen in a long time, and I've seen a lot. She took his hand, the same hand that had grabbed the barrel. So you're going to do one more brave thing for me? You're going to hold on for about 20 more minutes until my friend Ramirez gets here in a Blackhawk to take you home. Can you do that? Kessler's eyes found hers. You're the ghost, he whispered. The one on the radio. That's me. You saved all of us. We saved each other, Mercer said. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it was always supposed to work. Her voice caught. Now hold on. 20 minutes. Don't you dare make a liar out of me, Kessler, because I told your commander every one of you was going home, and I don't break my word. And then the radio crackled, and a voice came through, and it wasn't Ramirez. It was a woman's voice, calm, careful, and shaking underneath, with an emotion so vast it could barely be contained. Ava, the voice said, if this is really you, you're going to have to prove it, because I have grieved you for 4 years, and I will not survive it being a trick. So tell me something only you would know. Tell me what I said to you the last time we spoke before you got on that helicopter. Mercer went absolutely still, and then slowly she reached for the radio, and Cole watched 4 years of loneliness rise up in her face all at once. Dana, she said, and her voice so steady all night, so calm through 40 fighters and mortars and a cleanup team of professional killers, finally broke. The last thing you said to me was, don't you dare be a hero. Ava heroes come home in boxes, just do the job, and come back to me. She swallowed, and I didn't come back. I let you grieve me for 4 years because coming back would have gotten you killed. And I am so sorry, Dana. I am so sorry for every day of it. The silence on the radio was terrible, and then Dana Okoro's voice came back and she was weeping openly, without shame. You're alive, she said. You're alive. 4 years. 4 years I thought I went to your service, Ava. I folded a flag they gave me for a coffin with nothing in it. She broke off and gathered herself, and when she spoke again, there was steel underneath the tears. Where is he? Vance. Are you telling me Vance did it again? Are you telling me he tried to do to another team what he did to us? 6 SEALs, Mercer said. He walked them into this valley the same way he walked us into ours. Bad intel on purpose. He wanted them dead so they couldn't report what's up in these mountains 6 kilometers north of me. And Dana, they're alive. All 6 of them. They're standing right here. They're witnesses. For the first time in 4 years, there are living witnesses to what Marcus Vance really is. Cole heard Dana Okoro's breath catch. Witnesses, she whispered. Living witnesses. Ava, do you understand what that means? For 4 years, I've been sitting on everything, the intercepts, the falsified intel packages, the comms logs proving Vance cut our channels on purpose. Everything. And it was never enough because it was just my word, one grieving sergeant against a colonel and a dead operator I couldn't prove was murdered. But 6 living SEALs who can testify that Vance sent them to die. Her voice rose fierce and bright. That changes everything. That's not one voice anymore. That's a case that ends him. That's why he's going to try to kill them all before dawn, Mercer said flatly, and the joy drained out of the moment. His first team failed. His cleanup team just failed. He's not going to send a third team, Dana, because he knows now that whatever's in this valley is chewing up everything he throws at it. So he's going to do the thing Vance always does when the ground fight goes bad. She looked up at the sky where the storm was tearing apart to reveal cold, hard stars. He's going to use his authority. He's going to reach into the official channels he still controls, and he's going to task an asset that answers to the chain of command, a real one, a legitimate one. People who have no idea they're being used to murder their own, and he's going to send them here with orders that look completely legal. And those people will come because they'll be following what look like lawful orders, and they won't know they're being sent to kill 6 innocent Americans and bury the truth. The weight of it settled over the whole team. Cole felt it in his chest like a stone. So the helicopter that comes for us, he said slowly, the official one, the one that shows up after the storm clears to extract survivors of a recon mission gone wrong. Might be a rescue, Mercer said, or might be Vance's last play dressed up as a rescue, carrying people who've been told you're deserters or compromised, or whatever lie he needs to tell to get honest soldiers to point their weapons at you. Her eyes were grim. That's the nightmare, Cole. That's how Vance wins even when he loses. He doesn't send killers. He sends good people who've been lied to. And you can't fight good people who think they're doing their duty, not without becoming the villain in their story. Then how do we win? Reyes asked, his young voice tight. If we can't fight them, and we can't trust the rescue, and Vance controls all the official channels, how does this end? Any way but us dying in this valley? It was Dana who answered, and her voice had changed. The grief was gone, replaced by the cold focus of someone who had waited 4 years for this exact moment. It ends, she said, because I'm not going to let Vance control the channels. Not this time. Ava, listen to me. For 4 years, I've been building something. I couldn't act on it alone, but I built it anyway because I always believed you were alive, and I always believed this day would come. I've got a contact. Someone above Vance. Someone in the Inspector General's office who's been quietly investigating Vance for 18 months on something unrelated and who has never had the one thing that could break the case open, a witness that Vance couldn't reach and couldn't kill. Her voice sharpened. I can get that investigator on a secure line in 20 minutes. And if I put 6 living seals in the survivor Vance thought he'd erased in front of that investigator tonight in real time, while Vance is still scrambling to figure out what went wrong, then it doesn't matter what asset Vance tasks or what lie he tells. Because the moment that investigator hears you, Vance stops being a colonel, giving lawful orders, and starts being a murderer, trying to silence federal witnesses. And nobody, not even Vance, can task a legitimate asset to kill federal witnesses in an active investigation. Mercer closed her eyes. You've been building this for 4 years, she said softly. For me, on the chance I was still alive. Every single day, Dana said. I never stopped. I never believed you were really gone. And I swore that if you ever came back, I'd have the weapon ready. A pause. So come back, Ava. Come all the way back. Let's finish this. Together the way we were supposed to finish it 4 years ago. Cole watched Mercer's face and he saw something happen there that he would remember for the rest of his life. He watched a woman who had been alone for 4 years, who had made herself into a ghost, who had convinced herself that being dead was safer than being alive, decide in that moment to live, to come back, to stop being a ghost and become a person again with a friend and a purpose and a future. Okay, Mercer said, and her voice was steady again, but it was a different kind of steady, not the steadiness of someone with nothing left to lose, but the steadiness of someone who had just found something worth fighting for. Okay, Dana. Get me the investigator. 20 minutes. I'll have the SEALs ready to testify and I'll give the whole thing myself, everything Vance did 4 years ago on the record from a person he declared dead. She looked around at the team. But we've got a race now, because Vance is tasking his official asset right now. And if that asset gets here before Dana gets us in front of the investigator, then it doesn't matter what we can prove because we'll be dead before we can prove it. It's the investigator against the asset. Testimony against a bullet. Whoever gets here first wins. The radio crackled again, and Ramirez's voice broke through rough and urgent. Ava, I'm 10 minutes out. I've got a window in this storm and I'm coming in hot. Get me a landing zone and mark it. How's the wounded man? Cole looked down at Kessler, whose eyes had drifted closed, whose breathing had gone shallow and slow. Kessler, he said and shook him gently. Kessler, 10 minutes. Ramirez is 10 minutes out. Stay with me, Kessler. Kessler's eyes fluttered open. Still here, Commander, he breathed. Still here. 10 minutes, Cole said. You've got 10 minutes, and then you're on a helicopter and you're going home. Don't you quit on me now. Not gonna quit, Kessler whispered. Ghost told me not to. Can't make a liar out of the ghost. Mercer let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but her eyes were wet. She keyed the radio. Ramirez, wounded man, is critical but holding. LZ will be marked. But listen to me, you are not the only aircraft that might come into this valley tonight. There may be a second one behind you, official markings, and it will not be a friend. You get my wounded man, and you get out fast, and you do not under any circumstances wait around. You understand in and out. What aren't you telling me, Ava? There's no time, just trust me. In and out. Copy, Ramirez said grimly. In and out. Marking my approach now. And so the race began in earnest. 3 clocks running, down at once, Ramirez inbound to save Kessler, Dana racing to reach the investigator, and somewhere far away, Marcus Vance tasking an asset to come and bury the truth forever. Cole marked the landing zone with a chemical light, his hands steady, despite everything, and he looked up at the sky where the storm was finally breaking. And he thought about how strange it was that after everything, after the 40 fighters in the mortars and the cleanup team, it might all come down to which helicopter reached them first. Mercer, he said quietly while they waited, that thing you're about to do, testify, come back from the dead on the record to the Inspector General. You know that once you do that, there's no more hiding. Vance will know you're alive. Everyone will. You'll never be a ghost again. I know, Mercer said. Are you sure? Because being a ghost kept you alive for 4 years. The second you surface, the second I surface, I become a target, Mercer said. I know. I've known it since the moment I keyed that radio for Dana. She looked at him and there was no fear in her face, only a fierce, hard-won peace. But I've been thinking about something, Cole. All night watching your team fight, watching you refuse to leave Kessler, watching Nair save him and Boyd talk about his daughter, and Reyes climb that mountain scared out of his mind and do it anyway. She paused. I made myself a ghost because I thought the mission was to survive. Just survive. Stay dead. Stay hidden. Answer a distress call now and then, keep the ghost count from getting worse. That was the whole plan. Survive. She shook her head slowly. But that's not living, Cole. That's just refusing to die. And watching you people tonight, I remembered that there's a difference. And there's a difference between surviving and living, and I've been surviving for 4 years and I'm done. Her jaw set. So yes, I'm going to surface. I'm going to testify. I'm going to become a target. And Marcus Vance is going to spend whatever's left of his life knowing that the woman he buried came back to put him in the ground. She keyed the radio one more time. Dana, tell me you've got the investigator. There was a pause, and then Dana's voice came back tight with adrenaline. I've got him, Ava. He's on the secure line right now. He's awake. He's listening. And when I told him I had the survivor of the incident he's been chasing for 18 months, plus 6 living SEALs who were just sent to die by the same man, Ava, he said he'd been waiting 18 months for a break like this. He's ready. He's recording. Everything from this moment on is on the official record of a federal investigation. Her voice dropped. Which means the moment you start talking, you're a protected witness, and anyone who moves against you is committing a federal crime in the middle of an active case. Vance's window just closed, Ava. If we can get your testimony on the record before his asset arrives, he loses. He loses everything. Then let's not waste another second, Mercer said. She looked around at the team, at Cole, at all of them. You heard her? The moment we start talking, we're protected, but only if we finish before Vance's asset gets here. So we do this fast, and we do it now, all of us, every voice. She took a breath. Investigator, if you can hear me. My name is Captain Ava Mercer, United States Army. 4 years ago, I was declared killed in action after an operation in the mountains. That declaration was a lie. I was betrayed by Colonel Marcus Vance, who fed my team false intelligence that walked us into an ambush, killing 11 people and then had me declared dead to bury the truth. I survived. And tonight, Colonel Vance did the exact same thing to a 6-man SEAL team in this valley for the same reason, to protect something he's hiding and to silence anyone who might discover it. I have 6 living witnesses, and I am prepared to testify to all of it right now on the record. And far above the valley, cutting through the last shreds of the breaking storm, came the sound of rotor blades, a helicopter inbound fast. But there was no way yet to tell whose it was. The rotor blades grew louder, and every head in the valley turned toward the sound, and for a long, terrible moment, nobody knew whether it carried salvation or death. "Mercer," Cole said low and fast. "Is that Ramirez or is that Vance?" "I don't know." Mercer was already up, rifle in hand, eyes on the dark shape sweeping in from the north. "Ramirez was 10 minutes out. It's been 8. Could be him running early. Could be Vance's asset running ahead of him." Her voice hardened. "Everybody take cover, now. We do not show ourselves until we know whose bird that is. Cole, keep the wounded man down. Nair, be ready to move him the second we get a friendly." "And if it's not friendly," Boyd asked, sliding behind Rock, "then we've got a helicopter full of people who think they're doing their duty, and we do not fire on American soldiers." Mercer's jaw tightened. "We keep talking. We keep the investigator on the line. Because the only weapon that works against an honest man following bad orders is the truth spoken loud enough and fast enough that he has to stop and listen." The helicopter flared over the valley, and its searchlight stabbed down through the last of the falling snow, sweeping across the ground where 7 bodies from the cleanup team still lay. And then a voice came over the radio, and it was not Ramirez. "Ground element, this is inbound aircraft. Identify yourselves. You are in a restricted operational area, and we have orders to secure this valley. Show yourselves and lay down your weapons." Cole's blood ran cold. "That's not a rescue," he whispered. "That's Vance's asset. That's the official one." "Stay down," Mercer breathed. "Nobody move. Dana, you hearing this?" "I hear it." Dana's voice came back tight. "The investigator hears it too. Ava, that aircraft is a legitimate tasking. I can see the order in the system now. It's coming through Vance's authority, and it's telling them they're securing a valley against hostile forces after a compromised mission. Those people up there think they're the good guys. They think you're the enemy. Then we tell them the truth," Mercer said, "before they do something they can't take back." She keyed the radio, switching to the guard frequency the aircraft would be monitoring, and her voice went out into the night, calm and clear and absolutely steady. Inbound aircraft. This is Captain Ava Mercer, United States Army on the ground in this valley. Before you fire on anyone down here, you need to know that you are being used. The orders that sent you here came from Colonel Marcus Vance, and those orders are part of a crime. There are 6 American SEALs on the ground below you who were deliberately sent to die tonight by that same colonel. I am a federal witness in an active Inspector General investigation, and everything happening right now is being recorded on an official line. If you fire on us, you are not securing a valley. You are helping a murderer silence witnesses. And you will spend the rest of your life knowing it. The helicopter hung in the air, searchlight sweeping, and for a long moment, there was only the sound of its rotors and the wind. Then a different voice came over the radio. Older, careful, the voice of the aircraft's commander. "Say again your identity. You're telling me you're Ava Mercer. Captain Ava Mercer was killed in action 4 years ago. I know that name. I flew search for her team." Ooh. Mercer closed her eyes. "You flew search for us," she said quietly. "Then you're one of the people who was told we were all dead. You never found me because they never let you look in the right place. Vance made sure of that." She took a breath. "I'm alive. I've been alive for 4 years. And the same man who buried me is trying to bury these SEALs tonight. You can be part of that, or you can be the one who stops it, but you have about 30 seconds to decide, because there's another helicopter inbound, a real rescue. And if you fire first, an honest medevac pilot is going to fly into the middle of a massacre." The commander's voice came back, and there was doubt in it, now real doubt. "I have orders." "You have illegal orders," Dana's voice cut in over the net, sharp and official. "This is Sergeant First Class Dana Okoro, and I am on a live secure line with the Department of the Army Inspector General's office. Sir, the investigator is listening to this transmission right now. State your name and unit, because everything you do in the next 60 seconds is going on the federal record. If you fire on those people, You fire on protected witnesses in an active investigation, and no order from Colonel Vance will protect you from what comes after. But if you stand down, if you refuse an unlawful order, then you are exactly the soldier this country needs you to be." The silence on the radio stretched, and it was the longest silence of Cole's life. Everything balanced on it: 6 lives, 4 years of Mercer's exile, Dana's 4 years of waiting, Kessler's fading breath in the snow. Everything came down to whether one helicopter commander, hovering in the cold with a lawful-looking order in his hand, would choose the harder right over the easier wrong. "Investigator," the commander said finally, and his voice had changed. "Are you real? Are you actually on this line?" And a new voice came over the net, measured, authoritative, the volume of a man who had waited 18 months for this. "This is Inspector General's office. I'm a real major. I've been investigating Colonel Marcus Vance for a year and a half, and I have just recorded everything transmitted on this frequency. Captain Mercer is a protected federal witness as of this moment, and so are the 6 SEALs on the ground with her. Major, I need you to stand down. Do not engage. Hold your position, or better yet, land and render assistance. And I need you to understand that by choosing to do so, you are not disobeying a lawful order. You are refusing an unlawful one, and that is your duty under the code you swore to uphold." Another silence, and then the searchlight, which had been fixed on the ground like an accusing eye, slowly swung away. "Ground element," the commander said, and his voice was heavy with the weight of what he'd almost done. "This is the aircraft. I am standing down. I say again, standing down. I am not going to fire on American soldiers on the word of Marcus Vance." A pause. "Captain Mercer, if you're really down there, if you're really yelling her, then welcome back. God help me, welcome back." Mercer lowered the radio, and her hand was shaking, and Cole saw tears freezing on her face in the cold. "Thank you, Major," she said quietly. "You just saved 6 lives, and you just did what nobody did for my team 4 years ago. You listened." And then a second sound rose over the valley, a second helicopter coming in low and fast from a different direction, and this time when the voice came over the radio, it was Ramirez, rough and urgent and alive. "Hiva, I'm here. I'm on final. I've got the L's in light. Talk to me. Where's my wounded man?" "Right here, Ramirez." Cole was already moving, already gathering Kessler up with Nier and Boyd. "Right here. Get down here. We've got a critical. We've got a critical." The Black Hawk came down in a storm of its own making, and the moment its wheels touched the snow, the medical team was pouring out, and Cole and his people carried Kessler to them, and Nair was rattling off his injuries and his vitals, and the timeline of everything she'd done to keep him alive. And Kessler, gray and barely conscious, opened his eyes one last time as they loaded him aboard, and he found Mercer standing at the edge of the rotor wash, and he lifted one weak hand toward her. "Ghost," he called, and she came to him and took his hand. "You kept your word, told your commander we'd all go home. You kept it. You held on," Mercer said. "That was the deal. I told you not to make a liar out of me, and you didn't." She squeezed his hand. "Go home, Kessler. Go home and heal up and hug whoever's waiting for you. You earned it tonight about 10 times over." "Come with us," Kessler said. "You saved us. You should come home too." Something crossed Mercer's face and she almost couldn't answer. "I've got something to finish first," she said softly. "But maybe I'll find my way home too one of these days. You just get there first and hold my spot." And then the medics were pulling him aboard, and the Black Hawk lifted off carrying Kessler up and out of the valley toward a hospital where Vance's people would never find him. And Cole stood in the snow and watched it go, and felt something break loose in his chest that he'd been holding since the drone first went dark. The story of what happened after that valley took months to fully unfold, but the outcome was never really in doubt after that night, because once the truth was on the record, once there were living witnesses, Vance couldn't reach and couldn't kill the whole rotten structure the colonel had built came apart. Dana Okoro delivered 4 years of evidence to the investigator, the falsified intelligence packages, the comms logs proving Vance had cut Mercer's team off deliberately, the paper trail of a man who had used the machinery of a secret world to murder anyone who threatened him. Cole and his team testified to everything that had happened in the valley. The empty corridor, the prepositioned fighters, the mortars set up in advance, the drone shot down in the first minute. And Mercer testified to all of it, the woman who had been declared dead walking into a secure room and laying 4 years of betrayal on the table one piece at a time. The thing they found 6 kilometers north of the valley, The thing Vance had been willing to murder 6 SEALs to protect turned out to be exactly the kind of secret that ends careers and starts prison sentences. Cole never learned all the details. Much of it stayed classified. But he learned enough to understand that Marcus Vance had been running something in those mountains that had nothing to do with duty and everything to do with the colonel's own private ambitions, and that every person who had ever come close to discovering it had ended up dead or disgraced. Until now, until a ghost on a mountain answered a distress call on Christmas Eve. Marcus Vance was arrested 6 weeks later. He did not go quietly and he did not go alone. The investigation pulled in others who had helped him bury the truth, and the whole network of it collapsed under the weight of testimony from the people it had tried to erase. And when they finally put him in front of a military court, the witness who did the most damage, the one whose testimony he could not deflect or explain away, was the woman he had declared dead 4 years earlier. Ava Mercer sat across the room from the man who had betrayed her, the man who had let her bleed into the snow and then buried her on paper to keep her quiet, and she told the truth in a clear, steady voice until there was nothing left of his lies. But all of that came later. On the night in the valley after the Black Hawk carried Kessler away, there was one more thing that had to happen, and Cole would remember it as long as he lived. Because when the extraction team came for the rest of them, a real one this time, cleared through the investigator's safe, Ava Mercer did not get on the helicopter. "Mercer," Cole said when he realized she was hanging back, "what are you doing? The bird's here, it's over. You come with us." "Not yet," Mercer said. "Mercer, I've been a ghost for 4 years, Cole. I don't come back all at once. It doesn't work like that." She almost smiled. "There's still cleanup out here. There are things up north that need to be documented before anyone else can get to them and make them disappear. That's a job for someone who knows how to move through these mountains without being seen. That's a job for a ghost." She looked at him. "One more night. Let me do one more night as the ghost. Then I'll come in." Cole stepped out closer to her and he searched her face, and what he saw there made him understand. This woman had spent 4 years alone in the dark answering calls no one else heard, saving people who would never know her name. She had made herself into something that lived in the spaces between the official world and the forgotten one. And coming back, becoming a person again with a name on the record and a life in the light was going to take more than a single night. It was going to take time and courage of a different kind than the kind that had carried her through the firefight. "You're really one of us," Cole said. "You know that, right? Whatever the record says, whatever Vance did, you're part of this team now. Boyd would take a bullet for you. Reyes talks about you like you're something out of a legend. Nair wants to buy you a drink, and Kessler's alive because of you. You've got a place with us, a real one. All you have to do is take it." Something moved in Mercer's eyes, longing and fear, and a hope so fragile she could barely let herself feel it. "I've been alone a long time, Cole," she said quietly. "I forgot I was allowed to have that. A place. People." She looked away. "Give me some time. Let me finish being the ghost. And then..." She stopped and swallowed. "And then maybe I'll remember how to be a person again." Cole put his hand on her shoulder, the same way he'd gripped Reyes before sending him up the mountain. "You take all the time you need," he said, "but you know where we are now. And a SEAL team doesn't forget the person who came into the dark for them. You reach out anytime, any reason, any distress, call of your own, and we will come. That's a promise. That's a debt we owe you that we'll never fully pay, and we'll spend the rest of our lives glad to keep trying." He held her eyes. "You answered when nobody else would. So from now on, if you ever need answering, you know how to find us." Mercer's composure cracked just for a moment, and Cole saw 4 years of loneliness and grief and impossible strength and all at once. And then she pulled it back together because that was who she was. "Go home, Commander," she said softly. "Go home to whoever's waiting. Hug them. Tell them you love them. Do the thing I couldn't do for 4 years." She stepped back toward the dark. "That's all I've ever wanted, you know. For the people I saved to go home. That's the whole reason. That's the only reason. Now go." And so Cole and his team boarded the helicopter, and as it lifted off into the clearing, night, Cole looked down and saw her one last time, a single figure at the edge of the light growing smaller, and then in the way of ghosts simply gone, melted back into the mountains, as if she had never been there at all. But she had been there. 6 people were alive because she had been there. In the months that followed, as the case against Vance ground forward and the truth came fully into the light, Cole's team got word now and then through Dana Okoro that Mercer was doing well, that she was slowly coming in from the cold, that she'd taken an apartment somewhere under her own real name for the first time in 4 years, that she and Dana, the two survivors of a betrayal 4 years old, had found each other again and had refused to let go. And once near the following Christmas, Cole received something in the mail with no return address, a single card unsigned with only a few words written inside in a careful hand. It said, "Christmas came home this year, all of them, everyone I ever saved. Thank you for reminding me I was allowed to come home too." He knew who it was from. He kept that card for the rest of his life. And on the anniversary of that night in the valley every year, the members of the team raised a glass to the woman who had answered from the dark. Boyd, who saw his daughter turn 9 and then 10, and then every year after. Reyes, who had climbed a mountain scared out of his mind and come down a different man, and who told the story of the ghost sniper to every young operator he ever trained. Nair, who had saved a life with a stranger's voice guiding her through it. Wilson, who had sent his call into the dark and been answered. And Kessler, who healed and came back to duty and never once forgot the promise he'd kept, that he wouldn't make a liar out of the ghost. They had walked into that valley as a reconnaissance team and been left there to die by a man who thought no one would ever know. But someone had been listening on the frequencies nobody watched. Someone the world had forgotten, someone the system had erased, someone who was never supposed to exist at all. And because she existed, 6 people lived. Because she refused to stay buried, a murderer answered for his crimes. Because one woman alone in the dark decided that no soldier would die on her mountain the way her own team had died 4 years before an entire chain of lies came crashing down into the light. The world celebrates the heroes it can see. It gives them medals and parades and names carved in stone. But the greatest hero in that frozen valley never appeared on any record, never wore any medal, never stood in any light. She lived in the dark, answered the calls no one else heard, and asked for nothing in return but the sound of the people she saved making it home. Sometimes the ones who save us are not the ones the world remembers. Sometimes they are the ones the world tried its hardest to forget. And sometimes on a cold Christmas Eve, when all hope is gone and the distress call goes out into the dark one last time, the voice that answers belongs to someone who was never supposed to exist, and she is the reason you live to see the morning. The card with no return address arrived every year after that first one, and every year Ryan Cole read it standing by his mailbox, and every year it said something a little different, and every year it told him the same true thing underneath the words, that the ghost was still out there, and that she was still coming home one Christmas at a time. The second year the card said, "Dana made me put up a tree, first one in 5 years. I didn't know what to do with my hands. She laughed at me for an hour." Cole read that one twice, and then he laughed too, alone in his driveway in the cold, because he could picture it, the woman who had killed 40 men in a blizzard, standing helpless in front of a box of ornaments, undone by something as ordinary and impossible as a Christmas tree. But the story of how Ava Mercer finally came all the way home began properly about 18 months after the valley on an ordinary afternoon, when Cole's phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. "Commander Cole," the voice said, and even after a year and a half, he knew it instantly, that calm, clear steadiness that had reached him through a broken radio on the worst night of his life. "It's Mercer." Cole sat down. He didn't decide to. His legs just did it. "Ava," he said. "My God, it's you. Where are you? Are you okay? Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she said. And he could hear something in her voice he'd never heard before. A lightness, a hesitancy, the sound of a person unsure how to ask for something because she'd spent so long asking for nothing at all. "That's the strange part, Cole. Nothing's wrong. For the first time in a long time, nothing's wrong. And I found out that when nothing's wrong, you have to figure out what to do with all the time you used to spend surviving." A pause. "I'm calling because Donna told me I should. She said I've been circling this phone call for 3 months like it's a landmine. She said the only way to stop being a ghost is to start acting like a person and people call their friends." Another pause longer. "So, I'm calling my friend. Is this okay? Is this what people do?" Cole closed his eyes and something in his chest ached with a tenderness he hadn't expected. Here was one of the deadliest operators he had ever known, a woman who had walked off a mountain into a kill zone without flinching, and she was nervous about whether it was allowed to call someone she cared about. 4 years alone did that to a person. It made them forget the small, brave acts of connection were even permitted. Yeah, Ava, he said gently. That's exactly what people do. And yes, it's okay. It's more than okay. I've been hoping you'd call for a year and a half. You have. All of us have. You are not a ghost to us, Ava. You never were. You're the reason 6 people are alive. That doesn't fade. That doesn't go away because you disappear into the mountains for a while. He leaned back. How are you, really? And she told him, haltingly at first, and then more easily the way a person relearns a language they used to speak. She told him about the apartment she'd taken under her real name and how it had taken her a month to stop sleeping with her back to the wall and a weapon within reach. She told him about Dana, who had refused to let her disappear again, who called every single day for the first 6 months just so Mercer would remember she existed to someone. She told him about the strange, terrifying, wonderful project of building a life of learning to do ordinary things again, to sit in a coffee shop without mapping the exits to let herself want things beyond survival. The hardest part, she said, isn't the fear. I know how to handle fear. The hardest part is the wanting. When you've spent 4 years not letting yourself want anything, not a home, not people, not a future, because wanting things gets them taken away from you, and getting them taken away is worse than never having them. She was quiet a moment. And then one day you let yourself want just a little and it's like a dam breaking. Suddenly you want everything. You want all the years you missed. You want to matter to someone. You want to be at a table with people who know your name. Her voice caught. It's a lot, Cole, coming back to life. Nobody tells you it's this hard. It's supposed to be hard, Cole said. The things worth having always are. You know that better than anybody. That conversation was the first of many. Over the following months, Mercer called more and more often, and slowly, carefully, she let herself back into the world of the living. She met the team one by one. She had coffee with Nair, who did buy her that drink she'd promised in the valley, and the 2 women, the medic and the ghost, talked for 4 hours about the strange burden of being the one who keeps other people alive. She sat with Reyes, who was training new operators now, and who told her that he taught every single one of them the same lesson she'd taught him on that ridge, that the trick isn't not being scared, it's doing the job scared. She saw Boyd, who brought his daughter and the little girl, 10 now. Then 11 looked up at the quiet woman her father spoke about with such reverence and had no idea she was meeting a legend. And Mercer knelt down to her level and shook her hand very seriously and told her that her father was one of the bravest men she'd ever fought beside. Boyd had to turn away for a moment after that, and she saw Kessler. That reunion Cole made sure to be present for because he'd been there when the promise was made, and he wanted to be there when it was kept. Kessler had recovered. It had been a long road of months of surgery and rehab, but he'd come back scarred and slower than before, but alive, gloriously alive. And when Mercer walked into the room where he was waiting, the big man stood up, and for a moment neither of them said anything, the ghost and the man she'd told to hold on for 20 minutes. You kept your word, Kessler finally said, echoing the words he'd spoken in the valley. You told my commander we'd all go home, and here I am, home. You held on, Mercer said, echoing her own reply. That was the deal. And then Kessler crossed the room and wrapped her in an embrace so fierce it lifted her off her feet, this enormous man weeping openly into the shoulder of the woman who had saved his life. And Mercer, who had held herself together through 40 fighters and mortars and a cleanup team, who had walked off a mountain into a kill zone without a tremor, finally let go and cried and let herself be held by someone who was alive because of her. Thank you, Kessler said into her hair, for all of it, for coming into the dark, for the 20 minutes, for not letting me quit. He pulled back and looked at her. My kid was born 4 months ago. A boy. You know what his middle name is? Mercer shook her head, unable to speak. Ava, Kessler said. His middle name is Ava because he wouldn't exist if you hadn't answered that radio. Neither would I. He smiled through his tears. So there's a little boy in this world who's going to grow up knowing that he's named after the bravest person his father ever knew. And someday, when he's old enough, I'm going to tell him the whole story about the ghost on the mountain who saved his daddy on Christmas Eve. Cole watched at Mercer's face as she absorbed that, and he watched something heal in her that he hadn't known was still broken, the wound of believing she didn't matter, that she was erased, that the world had no place for her. Because here was proof in the form of a 4-month-old boy that she mattered so much that a child carried her name into the future. The case against Marcus Vance concluded that same year, and Vance was convicted on every charge that mattered: the murder of Mercer's team 4 years earlier, the attempted murder of Cole's team in the Valley, and the whole web of crimes he'd built in those mountains to serve his own ambition. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a military prison, and he would die there forgotten, which was a fate Cole found grimly fitting for a man who had tried to erase so many others. And the 11 people who had died in that first valley 4 years earlier, Mercer's team, ones she'd carried as ghosts for so long, are finally given the truth their families deserved. Their deaths were reclassified, their names cleared of the quiet shame that betrayal always leaves their sacrifice acknowledged at last. Mercer attended every one of those ceremonies. She stood at the back in dress uniform for the first time in years, and she watched families receive the truth she'd fought 4 years to deliver. And Donna Okoro stood beside her the whole time, and neither of them had to be alone for any of it. "That's the last of them," Dana said quietly after the final ceremony. "All 11, the record's straight. They're not ghosts anymore, Ava. And neither are you. Neither are we." Mercer corrected softly and reached over and took her friend's hand, and the two survivors of that first terrible valley stood together in the light they'd fought so hard to reach. But the moment Cole treasured most, the one he would tell his own grandchildren about someday, came at Christmas, the second Christmas after the Valley 1 full year, or after the night Mercer had answered from the dark. Because Cole had an idea and he'd been building toward it for months, and when he called Mercer to invite her, he was so nervous his voice shook. "The whole team's getting together for Christmas," he said. "All of us. Boyd and his family, Reyes, Nair, Wilson, Kessler, and his wife and the baby. Everybody. And we want you there, Ava, not as a guest, as one of us, as part of the team." He took a breath. "We want you to spend Christmas with us, if you'll come." The silence on the line lasted so long that Cole thought he'd said something wrong. "Ava, you still there?" "I'm here," she said, and her voice was thick. "Cole, I haven't spent a real Christmas with people I can't even remember. Before the program, before everything. I don't know if I remember how." "You don't have to remember how," Cole said. "You just have to show up. We'll do the rest. That's what a team is for. That's what family is for." He softened. "You spent 4 years making sure other people got to go home for Christmas. You gave that gift to 6 people in that valley, and God knows how many others on all those calls you answered alone. Let us give it back to you, Ava. Just this once. Let us give you a Christmas. Come home." And she came. Cole never forgot the sight of her standing in the doorway that Christmas Eve 1 year to the day, after the valley, hesitant, uncertain, a woman who had faced death without flinching, but who looked genuinely frightened of a warm room full of people who loved her. Dana was beside her because Dana was always beside her now. And for a moment, Mercer just stood there, taking it in: the lights, the tree, the children. The impossible, ordinary warmth of it, and Cole saw her hand tighten on the door frame, as though she needed something solid to hold on to. And then Kessler's little boy, the one who carried her name, was placed in her arms, and the whole room went quiet, and this deadly, haunted, extraordinary woman looked down at the sleeping child named after her, and something in her face broke open completely, and for the first time since Cole had known her, Ava Mercer looked purely, simply, uncomplicatedly happy. "Hey, little Ava," she whispered to the baby. "Hey, I'm the one you're named after. I hope that's okay. I hope I can be worth it." "You already are," Kessler said quietly. "You always were." They had Christmas together, all of them, the team, and the ghost who was a ghost no longer. Boyd's daughter showed Mercer how to string popcorn, and Mercer, who could calculate a ballistic solution across a mile of storm, fumbled the needle and thread and let the little girl laugh at her and laugh too. Reyes cornered her to tell her again how much that night on the ridge had meant to him, and this time she let him say it without deflecting, let herself simply receive the gratitude. Nair sat beside her, and the two of them didn't even need to talk much. Two women who understood each other in the way that only people who have kept others alive can understand each other. Wilson thanked her for answering his call, the call he'd sent into the dark to nobody, and Mercer told him that his voice, refusing to give up, sending that distress signal over and over into the nothing, was the bravest thing she'd heard that whole night, that she'd answered because a man who kept reaching out even when there was no reason to hope deserved to be reached back. And late that night, after the children were asleep and the fire had burned low, the members of the team raised their glasses the way they would every year for the rest of their lives. But this year, for the first time, the woman they toasted was in the room. This year, she was sitting among them, holding a mug of cider she'd barely touched because she kept forgetting to drink it, watching the faces of the people she'd saved with an expression of quiet wonder, as though she still couldn't quite believe she was allowed to be there. "To the ghost who answered from the dark," Boyd said, lifting his glass. "Except she's not a ghost anymore. She's family, to Ava." "To Ava," they all said. And Mercer, overwhelmed, looked around at them, at Cole, who'd trusted a voice on a radio with his team's lives, at Boyd, who'd wanted to see his daughter turn 10 and had seen her turn 11, at Reyes, no longer the frightened boy on the ridge, at Nair, who'd saved a life with a stranger guiding her hands, at Wilson, whose refusal to stop calling had summoned her out of the dark, at Kessler, alive and whole, with a sleeping son who bore her name, and she tried to speak and found she couldn't, and Dana reached over and squeezed her hand, and finally Mercer managed it. "For 4 years," she said, her voice unsteady, "I told myself the mission was to survive, to stay dead, to answer a call now and then and disappear before anyone could see me, because seeing me was dangerous and being seen was dangerous, and the safest thing in the world was to be nobody at all." She looked down at the mug in her hands. "And I told myself that was enough, that saving people from the shadows and asking for nothing back, that was a life, that it was even a good life, noble, maybe." She shook her head slowly. "But it wasn't a life, it was just a very long way of dying slowly. I was so busy making sure other people got to go home that I forgot I was allowed to want a home of my own." She looked up and her eyes were shining. "You people gave me that back. You reminded me that being saved isn't only for other people, that a person who spends her life answering distress calls is allowed someday to send one of her own and to have it answered." She raised her mug, finally at last. "So, to all of you, to the 6 people I found in a valley on the worst night of a lot of our lives, you didn't just let me save you, you saved me right back. And I will spend the rest of my life, my real life, my out loud life, my life with my name on it, grateful that a scared young man named Wilson kept sending a call into the dark until a ghost decided to answer." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, much later, when the party had wound down and most of the team had drifted off to sleep, scattered through Cole's house, Cole found Mercer standing alone by the window looking out at the snow that had begun to fall softly over the quiet street. He came and stood beside her. "You okay, Hans?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, and then wonderingly, as if she was only just discovering it was true, "Yeah, I am. I'm okay." She glanced at him. "I keep waiting for it to feel like a trap. That's the 4 years talking. Some part of me is still standing on the mountain, still waiting for the other shoe to drop, still expecting all of this to be taken away." She looked back out at the snow. "But it's not a trap. It's just Christmas. It's just people who care about each other in a warm house, in the snow. That's all it is." Her voice softened to almost nothing. "I forgot the world had things like this in it. I forgot I was allowed to be inside them." "You're allowed," Cole said. "You're allowed all of it, Ava, for as long as you want. The war's over. You can put it down now." She was quiet for a long time, watching the snow. "You know what the strangest part is?" she said finally. "I spent 4 years thinking I was dead. Officially dead and dead inside too, and I'd made a kind of peace with it. And then I answered one radio call on one cold night, and everything changed. 6 people I'd never met pulled me back into the world just by refusing to let me stay a ghost." She turned to face him. "One distress call, Cole. That's all it took. One call answered, and it saved all of us. Them from the valley, and me from 4 years in the dark." She almost laughed. "I always thought I was the one doing the saving. Turns out it goes both ways. Turns out the person answering the call gets saved too." Cole put his hand on her shoulder one last time, the gesture that had become their private language. "That's the secret nobody tells you," he said. "The ones who spend their lives saving other people, they're not doing it because they don't need saving. They're doing it because they need it most of all. And every once in a while, if they're lucky, if they let themselves be found, someone comes into the dark for them too." He smiled. "You came into the dark for us, Ava, and then you let us come into the dark for you. That's the whole story. That's the only story that ever mattered." Bon. Outside, the snow kept falling soft and clean and forgiving, covering the world in white. Inside, in the warm, quiet house, a team that had become a family slept scattered in every room, and a woman who had been dead for 4 years stood in the glow of a Christmas tree and let herself finally completely come home. She never became a ghost again. She kept her name and her friends and her place at the table. And every Christmas after that, she spent with the team, and every year the toast was the same, and every year she was there to hear it. She and Dana built lives out in the open, in the light, the two survivors who had refused to let the darkness keep them. And though she never fully left behind the part of herself that listened on the frequencies nobody watched, because some callings don't ever truly let go, and there were still people out there who needed answering, she never again did it alone. When a distress call came now, she had a team behind her. She had people who would come. She had a home to return to when it was over. The world still celebrates the heroes it can see, but Ryan Cole and every member of that team spent the rest of their lives knowing a deeper truth, that the greatest hero they ever knew was the one the world had tried to erase, and that her redemption came not from a medal or a record or a name carved in stone, but from 6 people who refused to let her stay buried, and one small boy who carries her name into a future she made possible. She was never supposed to exist. The system erased her, betrayed her, left her to die alone in the snow. But she survived, and she answered when no one else would, and in the end, she was saved by the very people she saved. And on every Christmas Eve for the rest of her life, surrounded by the family she never thought she'd have, Ava Mercer knew with absolute certainty the one truth that the darkness could never take from her again, that she was home, that she was loved, and that she was never, ever alone.